Welcome to Fox 5 News Live, guys. I'm Jasmine Cornell. Your time is 1 p.m. It's the Monday after Easter. Thanks for joining us here on Fox Local, where we're streaming live and also streaming on some of your favorite social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube. But let's get into our top stories. We know that Atlanta police are investigating a string of shootings that happened across the area this Easter weekend, trying to piece things together. Let's first talk about one that happened last night. 4 teens were shot Sunday night in southwest Atlanta. Officers responded around 9 p.m. to Spark Street near the Lee Street intersection, where they found 2 victims. 2 additional victims later arrived at the Grady Hospital in private cars. This is according to Atlanta police. All 4 victims are teenagers. Their ages, a 16-year-old, 2 17-year-olds, and an 18-year-old. At least 1 victim was taken to the hospital with serious injuries, while another was alert when taken to the hospital. But the conditions of the other 2 victims have not been released. Investigators have not said what led up to this shooting and whether there are any suspects or vehicles involved. It appears that no arrests have been made either in this shooting. But again, this is just one shooting that Atlanta police are investigating. Several happened starting on 404 Day on Saturday following events that day. And we'll continue to bring you the latest on these shootings. We know that Atlanta police recently spoke on that 404 Day shooting at Piedmont Park. And hopefully we can listen to a little bit of that a little bit later. But moving forward, let's talk about the war in the Middle East. Trump issuing a new warning. We know that deadline to open the Strait of Hormuz, his deadline that is, ends tomorrow. So ahead of the Tuesday deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, President Trump is making new threats toward Iran. That follows the dramatic rescue of an American airman over the weekend. And we are expecting to hear more from the president. Press conference is set to happen during this hour, and we'll pull that live for you when it starts. But for now, we're expecting to hear that in a news conference at the White House. He's once again telling Iran that time is running out. Firefighters in Israel battle flames through the wreckage. And here's video of the war. After an Iranian missile struck the area in Iran, state media reported that 5 people were killed in an attack at a facility, a petrochemical facility there. And from President Trump yesterday, another threat to Iran. He said, quote, Tuesday, tomorrow will be power plant day and bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran, and there will be nothing like it. Open the strait. He wrote a few hours later on social media, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. The president also telling Fox that a deal with Iran could happen today. Democratic critics, though, doubt the threat will work here. What did work over the weekend was the daring rescue of that U.S. airman who had been trapped behind enemy lines after his F-15E fighter jet was apparently shot down by Iranian forces. The CIA reportedly created a ruse to help rescue him to safety. And meantime, the Associated Press reports that mediators from Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey have presented the U.S. and Iran with a 45-day ceasefire proposal. Again, we're expecting to hear from Trump and a press conference at the White House in several minutes here. And when that gets underway, we'll bring it to you live. Moving back home to the Atlanta area, a former cheerleader is speaking out after her coach pleaded guilty and was sentenced in this abuse case. So that former cheerleader sharing her story of survival with us after her former coach, which you see on your screen there, Charles Moore III, pleaded guilty last week in Gwinnett County to grooming and sexual exploitation of a minor. And just to warn you that some of the details in this case are very disturbing. So we're speaking of Lily Penn. She's now 19 years old. Now 19 years old, excuse me, but the whole ordeal began when she was 15 years old in Moore's tumbling class. This is according to Lily. She also says Moore began communicating with her frequently on Snapchat and made efforts to get close to her family members. The situation escalated when he began sending inappropriate texts and asking her to meet him for sexual encounters in his car at the cheer gym. And despite Penn expressing hesitation and telling him she had a boyfriend, she says Moore became intimate with her. She testified at his plea hearing last week, again in Gwinnett County, describing the emotional toll of facing her abuser in court. And regarding his guilty plea, Penn said it provided a sense of relief. Definitely that closure, she says, like hearing him say, yes, I did, because he knows that he did me wrong. Again, that is her quote there. She says, quote, I'm getting justice for myself and for the people who feel like they cannot come forward, end quote. So she feels like justice is served in this case. Moore is 33 years old. Again, that's the coach there on your screen. He coached at several cheer organizations across Georgia and across the metro Atlanta area, and even at a high school in Walton County. And after pleading guilty, a Gwinnett County judge sentenced him to 25 years with his first 12 years to be served in prison. Authorities say Moore coached at multiple programs, again, including Star Athletics Cheer in Barrow County, Atlanta Jayhawks in Gwinnett County, and Walnut Grove High School in Walton County. It is unclear if any other victims have come forward to investigators since his arrest in 2024, and he does still face additional charges in Barrow and Walton counties. Again, one of his victims speaking out, saying that she believes that justice has been served. Your time is 1:07. Let's talk about what Fox 5 News is working on. We're going to bring in our Fox 5 managing editor, Cal Calloway. Cal, thanks for joining us. I know we have several stories that we're following, including the rash of shootings we've seen in the Atlanta area this past weekend.
Jasmine, good afternoon. As you mentioned, that shootings that have taken place have really dominated the news in the city of Atlanta so far this morning. As you mentioned, there were 4 teenagers who were shot last night. There was another case over the weekend where a 3-year-old was fatally shot who was in the care of a caregiver while the child's parents were working. And then on Saturday night at Piedmont Park, something you alluded to earlier, where we had 2 teenagers shot, one of them fatally, after the 404 festival at Piedmont Park. That rash of shooting led the mayor and Atlanta police officials to hold a news conference this morning to address the situation. They talked a little bit about what had happened. Let's listen in to what the mayor and Atlanta police had to say about those shootings.
Good morning. On this Saturday, 16-year-old Tiana Robinson lost her life in a tragic incident of gun violence. 15-year-old Italia Wilson was also shot in the shoulder, but thankfully, after being treated at Grady, she's already at home healing. I spoke to both sets of parents the very next morning, and I was able to talk to and console the parents of Tiana Robinson, as well as the parents of Italia Wilson. We're grieving right now with the family of Tiana Robinson. I was able to talk to them. They live in Riverdale. Tiana attended North Clayton High School, and they came to Piedmont Park just to have fun for the weekend. I spoke to Italia Wilson's mother, and they live in Norcross and Peachtree Corners, north of the city. And she and her sister came to Piedmont to just enjoy a day at the park. This shooting occurred at Piedmont Park. On one side of the park, where we had there was not a festival going on this side of the park. On one side of the park, earlier in the day, there was a festival taking place. It was a permitted festival by the city's standard permitting process. This event was all day, and under city code, it required
And again, guys, you were just listening to Mayor Andre Dickens speak about the rash of shootings. We'll catch back up with Cal Calloway right now. We do want to get to President Trump speaking at the White House in this news conference. Let's go ahead and take that
Thursday night, an American F-15 fighter jet went down deep inside enemy territory in Iran while participating in Operation Epic Fury, where we're doing unbelievably well, well at a level that nobody's ever seen before. The entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night. Both members of the crew ejected from the aircraft and landed alive. On Iranian soil, I immediately was asked to make a decision. I ordered the U.S. Armed Forces to do whatever was necessary to bring our brave warriors back home. A risky decision, because we could have ended up with 100 dead as opposed to 1 or 2. It's a hard decision to make. But in the United States military, we leave no American behind. We don't do it. Within hours, our armed forces deployed 21 military aircraft into hostile airspace, many flying at very low altitude, being shot by bullets. You bring rifles into play when you're going that low, but there are also certain advantages. And in broad daylight over Iran for 7 hours, at times facing very, very heavy enemy fire. We have a helicopter that's got a lot of bullets in it. It's amazing. We just realized how good those weapons are. Our machines are. Nobody has the equipment that we have, and nobody has the military that we have. Not even close. We're the most powerful military anywhere in the world by far. The flight crews and warfighters aboard those aircraft took extraordinary risks to rescue their fellow service members. This first wave of search and rescue forces successfully located the pilot of the F-15, and he was extracted from enemy territory by an HH-60 Jolly Green II helicopter. Fabulous machine as our warriors faced gunfire at very close range. It's amazing that when you look at the machinery, what happened, that nobody was even injured. Meanwhile, the second crew member, a weapons system officer, highly respected colonel, had landed a significant distance away from the pilot. When you're going at those speeds, even if you go out 2 or 3 seconds later, it's miles and miles away because you're going fast. He was injured quite badly and stranded in an area teeming with terrorists from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps rough group, as well as besieged militia and local authorities. Many, on top of everything else, they told the communities actually within inside of Iran, the people of Iran, they were given a tremendous incentive to find this pilot. Despite the peril, the officer followed his training and climbed into the treacherous mountain terrain and started climbing toward a higher altitude, something they were trained to do in order to evade capture. They want to always go as far away from the site of the shoot down. You want to go as far away because they all head right to that site. You want to be as far away as you can. And he was injured, and he was an amazing, amazing thing. He scaled cliff faces, bleeding rather profusely, treated his own wounds, and contacted American forces to transmit his location. They have a very sophisticated beeper-type apparatus that is on them at all times. And when they go out on these missions, they make sure they have lots of battery space, and they're in good shape. And this one worked really well, amazingly, saved his life. We immediately mobilized a massive operation to retrieve him from the mountain holdout, and he kept going higher and higher. The mountain kept getting rougher and rougher, and really very, very hard to find. This second rescue mission involved 155 aircraft, including 4 bombers, 64 fighters, 48 refueling tankers, 13 rescue aircraft, and more. We were bringing them all over, and a lot of it was subterfuge. we wanted to have them think he was in a different location because they had a vast military force out there. Thousands of people were looking. So we wanted them to look in different areas, so we were scattered all over like we were right on top of them. We had 7 different locations where they thought, and they were very confused. They said, well, wait a minute, they've got groups here, they've got groups there. It's an amazing thing. I was listening to these great people, these great generals. General Raisin Cain was amazing, and Pete Hegseth was amazing. But I listened to the whole thing. It was pretty amazing. So they had all these different sites where everybody thought he was located. We think we have him over there because they have 9 planes circling a little area that's 25 miles down the coast. So in a breathtaking show of skill and precision, lethality and force, America's military descended on the area, the real area, engaged the enemy, rescued the stranded officer, destroyed all threats, and exited Iranian territory while taking no casualties of any kind. The heroic F-15 weapons system officer had evaded capture on the ground in Iran for almost 48 hours. That's a long time when you're in tough shape and when you're bleeding. It's a long time. When we left, as you probably know, we had 2 large planes, pretty old planes that carried a lot. We needed a lot more equipment going in than coming out, obviously, because going in, we needed to be able to scale mountains, and we had a lot of equipment. But the sand was sandy, wet sand, so we thought there may be a problem taking off because of the weight of the plane, and then we also had all the men jumping back onto the planes, and they got pretty well bogged down, and we had a contingency plan, which was unbelievable, where lighter, faster aircraft came in, and they took them out. We blew up the old planes, and we blew them up to smithereens because we had equipment on the planes that, frankly, we'd like to take, but I don't think it was worthwhile spending another 4 hours there taking it off. So we didn't want anybody to have, we have the best equipment anywhere in the world. We didn't want anybody examining our anti-aircraft and other equipment. So these were large planes that were old and pretty old, and we blew them up, and we had faster, lighter planes come in, and they were able to land on the sand. We needed the bigger planes because we had so much equipment that we needed. We took 3 helicopters over there, which were very strongly used, and couldn't have lived without them. They did, and they performed unbelievably well. And if you'd see it, you wouldn't believe it. They came off the plane, and these guys had them, the rotors were off. They rebuilt these helicopters in less than 10 minutes. And that was one of the more amazing things. These are helicopters, small, unbelievably powerful, but small, very small, so it can get into certain areas. And they got them off the plane, and they rebuilt all 3 of them in a matter of less than 10 minutes. It's pretty amazing what the genius of these people. Who would think that? You'd think it would take 5 days to build them. And in some companies, it would take 5 days, and they wouldn't do it well. But they served us well. As Commander-in-Chief, I never forget the extraordinary risk taken by the warriors that we send into battle, and the genius. I mean, think of it, having a contingency of 3 planes waiting because we think the sand is so bad that we probably won't be able to take off. And the planes really got bogged. The sand this was not much of a runway. This was a farm, not a runway. It's a farm, but it did the trick. But to have a contingency as opposed to having to wait 2 days, can you imagine right in the middle? This was central. This was right, you would call it central casting if you were doing a movie for location. And probably the toughest area of Iran where we'd be sitting there. So these planes came in, those pilots came in so fast and so quick and got out of there. Everybody got aboard and just got 15-minute intervals. 1 load out, 1 load out, 1 load out. It happened, and we were watching, and we said, "That's amazing." It's in many ways, I was almost more impressed by the contingency that we had than the fact that if we would have had a runway or decent soil, but it was an amazing thing. But we thank God for every single one of them and the talent. The genius is not even talent, it's genius. It's the whole ball game, every one of them. Now, if you look at what we did with Maduro, we went into a military compound, a massive, with thousands and thousands of soldiers, and within a matter of minutes, and he lived behind iron doors. There were steel doors, broke them down so quickly, and within almost minutes, he was in the back of these planes. It was a similar group. Incredible. We have incredibly talented people. And if the time comes, we move heaven and earth to bring them home safely. We're going to bring our people home safely. I want to thank every member of the U.S. Armed Forces involved in these historic operations. They really were historic. It's just not something that's done. And you'd understand it. Not that they don't want to do it, but when you're going into areas, when you look at these helicopters, when you look at the amount of bullets and everything else that they took, when you go into these areas, you don't come out like we came out. God was watching us, I tell you. Well, it was the Easter, we were in Easter territory, I guess, but God was watching us. Amazing. Because when you look at the machinery, they took damage. It tells you, first thing I said is, these are unbelievable machines, how they flew back and not even much of a problem. But these two extraordinary rescues, because it was two, and as you probably know, we didn't talk about the first one for an hour. Then somebody leaked something, which we'll hopefully find that leaker. We're looking very hard to find that leaker. And talked about there's somebody missing. They basically said that we have one and there's somebody missing. Well, they didn't know there was somebody missing until this leaker gave the information. So whoever it was, we think we'll be able to find it out because we're going to go to the media company that released it, and we're going to say, national security, give it up or go to jail. And we know who, and you know who we're talking about, because some things you can't do. Because when they did that, all of a sudden, the entire country of Iran knew that there was a pilot that was somewhere on their land that was fighting for his life. And it also made it much more difficult for the pilots and for the people going in to search for him. All of a sudden, they know that there's somebody out there. They see all these planes coming in. It became a much more difficult operation because a leaker leaked that we have one, we've rescued one, but there's another one out there that we're trying to get. So actually, the country, Iran, put out a major notice, you all saw it, offering a very big award for anybody that captures the pilot. So in addition to a hostile, very talented, very good, very evil military, we had millions of people trying to get an award. So when you add that to it, but we have to find that leaker because that's a sick person. Probably didn't realize the extent of how bad it was. I can't imagine that the person did, but we're going to find out. It's national security, and the person that did the story will go to jail if he doesn't say, and that doesn't last long, and I think everybody would understand it. They put this mission at great risk. They put that man at great risk, and they put the hundreds of people that went in looking for him, because everyone now knows that we're going in. Over the past 37 days, America's armed forces have carried out more than 10,000 combat flights over Iran, unheard of, striking more than 13,000 targets. The F-15 we lost last week was the first manned aircraft downed by the enemy in this entire operation with thousands and thousands of flights. They got lucky. It was a lucky hit. You know, eventually you get lucky. But we got lucky, too, because we got both of them back. But it's a record that is unparalleled in the history of military air operations. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. It's such an honor to be involved with it. We were up late at night, and then we were waiting for those contingent planes to come in, and we say, come on, let's go, get in, because they're waiting out on this farm without a runway, with wet, crummy soil, sand, mostly sand, wet sand, and it eats planes alive. And we're waiting, and we're saying, I hope that one can land and take off. And they came in like magic. Boom, 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 one after another. It was like genius. I'm so impressed by that. Because we were a little concerned. We said, boy, if they don't get in and get up fast, we're sitting in them. And that's called Iran Prime, right, General? That's where the whole bet is. And here we are sitting there waiting for a plane. But they came in so fast and so hard, and these guys knew exactly what to do. Let's go, come on, get in, let's go. Bwah. They came one right after another, not at the same time. They don't want to come at the same time. They had to come right after each other. They didn't have any room. There was barely any room to land. Tiny little patch of very wet earth and sand. So I'm so proud of the people that I have standing up here with me and many others that worked. I mean, so many. Steve Witkoff's over here. He's doing fantastically. Jared Kushner. But the people that are here, the job they did is amazing. And I think I'm going to introduce the head of the CIA, and he is a man he's central casting, okay? If we cast a movie, he's going to play the head of the CIA. He's one of the few. John Ratcliffe, he did a phenomenal job that night. He did something that I don't know if you want to talk about it. If you want, you can. I'm not sure he's supposed to. I'm not going to talk about it. But the CIA was very responsible for finding this little speck. It's like they used an expression on one of the shows. A general was talking about, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, finding this pilot. And the CIA was unbelievable. And you may, if you can, you'll talk. It might be classified, in which case I'd have to put him in jail if he talks about it. And I don't want to put him in jail. He doesn't deserve that. So, John, do you want to say a few words? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a privilege to be here with you today to share what we can about this exceptional mission and to recognize the ingenuity and bravery of those who executed it, as well as the leadership and resolve of the President who ordered it. One thing that has been clear to me in this role is that the flawless military operations that the Department of War is known for are hostage to flawless intelligence. We saw that in the skies over Iran in Operation Midnight Hammer last summer. We witnessed it in Venezuela during Operation Absolute Resolve. We've seen it against the cartels in the Western Hemisphere, and we're seeing it every day in Operation Epic Fury, including this mission to rescue an aviator buried deep behind enemy lines. Because it is the unique tradition of the U.S. Armed Forces that we leave no man or woman behind, this was a no-fail mission. That was the spirit in which the President put us to work, and we were determined not to let him down or our airmen down. As an agency, the CIA possesses unique capabilities that only the President can deploy. Some of these capabilities fall under covert action authorities, and because covert means exactly that, I'm not going to be able to tell you everything that you want to know. At the President's direction, we deployed both human assets and exquisite technologies that no other intelligence service in the world possesses to a daunting challenge, comparable to hunting for a single grain of sand in the middle of a desert. This was also a race against the clock, as it was critical that we locate the downed aviator as quickly as possible, while at the same time keeping our enemies misdirected. For that reason, in addition to the human and technical assets deployed by the President to find our airmen, CIA executed a deception campaign to confuse the Iranians who were desperately hunting for our airmen. On Saturday morning, we achieved our primary objective by finding and providing confirmation that one of America's best and bravest was alive and concealed in a mountain crevice, still invisible to the enemy, but not to the CIA. That confirmation was relayed by Secretary Hegseth to the President, and the operation quickly moved to the execution phase. Following the successful exfiltration on Saturday night, our intelligence reflects that the Iranians were embarrassed and ultimately humiliated by the success of this audacious rescue mission. When the President asked me to lead the CIA, He made it clear, get back to basics, no politics, no agendas. Tackle the hardest problems and execute the toughest missions. This president is about results, and now that's what his CIA is about too. The professionals at the agency and at the Department of War deserve immense credit for their flawless execution during this daring mission. Their skill, creativity, and courage are unmatched on the battlefield wherever they step. But none of that matters, and all of that is wasted without a president with the political courage to put them into action. Mr. President, I've had the privilege of seeing you act with political courage in the best interest of the United States up close on a daily basis, and I'm grateful that this successful mission has given the American people a window into that as well. The Secretary and Chairman will tell you that our service members...
All right, guys, you just listen in to President Trump there and White House officials give an update on Operation Epic Fury. We know that the tensions in the Middle East are escalating ahead of Trump's deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump making new threats toward Iran. That deadline is tomorrow. So again, we just heard from the president there and White House officials. Guys, let's talk about what's happening locally. So we were discussing several events happening in our area, a string of violence happening in our area. But first, let's actually, before we get into that, it's 1:31. Let's take a look at your weather forecast.
North Georgia this afternoon, as temperatures are a little more seasonable compared to what we saw over the last 2 to 3 weeks, particularly towards the back half of March and into April. Yesterday was actually our first average day in quite a while, and our first day since St. Patrick's Day that we weren't below average, or that we were either at or below average. There you go. So sunset tonight at 8:02. Do look for clouds to be present, right, particularly along and south of I-20 here through the evening hours. Up north of I-20, that's where you're seeing some more breaks in the clouds, and that does include out in Augusta, right? Looking at the cloudy skies out there as we work our way into the evening hours tonight and into tomorrow. Now, tomorrow we'll see a general clearing trend across north and central Georgia, but it's going to take a while to reach the rest of eastern Georgia. So do be on the lookout for that if you're headed out I-20 tomorrow afternoon, and I'm sure to enjoy it with temperatures in the 70s. Here we go into the Wednesday morning hours. A breeze coming in out of the northeast. That's actually going to keep temperatures a bit cooler there for Wednesday. As for this afternoon, looking for a high temperature in Atlanta around 68, 70 in Athens, 70 in Covington, 70 in Milledgeville. Mind you, with sunset at 8 something, this high temperature is happening at about 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon now. Let's talk about this because it's a developing situation that we continue to keep tabs on. The drought monitor. One, look at the state of Georgia and how much is included in at least severe drought. We'll talk more about that here in a second, but let's zoom in on our area real quick. And you're going to see from the upstate of South Carolina down into Elbert County, over into the Athens area, lifting up into Clarksville and Blue Ridge. That's where you're in extreme drought. If you think about the different levels there, that's level 4 out of 5. And we've got exceptional drought down into South Georgia. As for Metro Atlanta, we are in the severe drought territory, and we really need some rain to put an end to this. Just how much rain? Well, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches each week for 3 months. And I just don't see that on the horizon, unfortunately, for us here in Metro Atlanta and North Georgia. We are more than a foot below average since the beginning of September, putting us in the worst drought we've seen since 2012. And part of the reason for that is the dry air that we've been experiencing and that we're going to continue to experience here through the week ahead. That's going to put the kibosh on any rain chances as well. We were talking about tomorrow in Augusta, 74, your high temperature out there, morning clouds, afternoon sun. Copy and paste that forecast to Metro Atlanta, 74 for the afternoon, probably more sun earlier in the day. And then as we find our way towards the back half of the week, we're going to reset that warming trend with the northeasterly breeze on Wednesday before we get back into the 80s for Saturday and Sunday. It's definitely going to be a much better weekend ahead than we saw this past weekend with those rain chances non-existent.
All right, Alex, thanks for giving us an update on our weather forecast there, guys. When we return, we'll talk more about our headlines, our local headlines, and the war in the Middle East. Welcome back to Fox 5 News Live, guys. Let's get back into our headlines and talk about what Fox 5 News is working on today. There's our Cal Calloway, our managing editor. Cal, thanks for joining our stream today. Let's talk about Angel, or actually not Angel, Reese. I want to first talk about this initiative following the tragic teen shootings in our area.
Well, Jasmine, there's a gentleman in DeKalb County for several years has made his mission to try to cut down on youth violence. And he had this camp already set up for this week, but the timeliness in light of the teen crimes we were talking about earlier, there's definitely a connection there. He uses the game of chess to try to hopefully teach young people to make better decisions. And as he has said many times, hopefully decisions that don't involve guns or violence. Tyler Finger went to that camp today. He'll have that story for us later on this afternoon. And finally, story you just alluded to has been the talk of our newsroom in light of yesterday's NCAA Women's Basketball Championship. One of the star players of the WNBA is now a member of the Atlanta Dream. The team announced this morning that they have traded 2 first-round picks to get Angel Reese to join the team. They made the trade with Chicago. The Dream will be kicking off their season shortly. But Angel Reese is one of the biggest names in the WNBA, and obviously that brings some star power to our team. So excitement for the upcoming season even gets a little bit better with Angel Reese joining the Dream. Jasmine?
Right, Cal, that sounds great. Good news for Atlanta Dream there, and All-Star Angel Reese. Cal, thank you so much for joining our stream. Guys, we want to go back and get to that live press conference we were showing you earlier today, the White House giving an update on Operation Epic Fury. Let's go ahead and bring that live. I know that Pete Hegseth is speaking right now, so let's go ahead and listen.
We fight with honor, and under President Trump's leadership, we win. So God bless our troops, God bless President Trump, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. A note before I start, I know many of you want specific details in these briefings. We will share what we can, but I will retain what I must in the event that we have to go do this again sometime. And I cannot stress the importance, as the President said, around operational security. The Secretary and I will do a more detailed briefing tomorrow morning, and we look forward to sharing the details that we can. On Thursday, 2 April at 10:10 p.m. Eastern Time, 4:40 in the morning, local Iran time, the Joint Personnel Recovery Center, which handles the Central Command area of responsibility, declared an isolated personnel recovery event for a U.S. Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle, call sign Dude 44, which was down in hostile Iranian territory. The pilot and weapons system officer had both safely ejected and were isolated behind enemy lines. Following confirmation of active rescue beacons and on the direction of the Secretary and by order of the President, a rescue operation was launched with the stated purpose of bringing both Americans home safely. As the Secretary said, several hours later on the morning after positively locating the front seater, call sign Dude 44 Alpha, and aware of an aggressive ongoing search by the enemy, a U.S. Central Command plan was approved by the Secretary and the President. Shortly thereafter, a U.S. Air Force Combat Search and Rescue Task Force comprised of A-10 Warthogs in their Sandy role, and I'll describe what that is in a minute, HC-130 Combat King 2s, HH-60 Jolly Green 2 helicopters, and Air Force Special Warfare Airmen, a package comprised of combat rescue officers and pararescueman operators, audaciously penetrated enemy territory in broad daylight to find, fix, and recover Dude 44 Alpha from behind enemy lines. This was an incredibly dangerous mission, an incredibly dangerous undertaking, but a filled promise made to every American warfighter that you will not be left behind. We will always come find you, and we will always bring you home. Over the next hours, the search and rescue task force crossed the beach, entered into Iranian airspace, protected by a fighter strike package, and moved into the objective area, all under fire. En route, as some of you have seen on social media, the helicopters took gas off the C-130s and pressed onward and forward up into the objective area. While this was ongoing and out in front of them, the Sandy flight of A-10s and other remotely piloted aircraft, drones, and other tactical aircraft were violently suppressing and engaging the enemy in a close-in gunfight to keep them away from the front seater and allow the pickup force to get into the objective area. During this engagement, one of the Sandy aircraft, the one primarily responsible for communicating with the downed pilot, was hit by enemy fire. This pilot continued to fight, continued the mission, and then upon exit, flew his aircraft into another country and determined that the airplane was not landable. This was one of our A-10 Sandy aircraft. The pilot then made the decision to eject over friendly territory and was quickly and safely recovered and is doing fine. After picking up Dude 44 Alpha, the HH-60 Jolly Green fight was engaged by every single person in Iran who had a small arms weapon. And one of the aircraft, the trailing aircraft, took several hits. The crew sustained minor injury, and they are going to be fine. A note for those of you that do not know what a Sandy does. Named after the flight call sign that did this very mission in Vietnam, flying A-1 Sky Raiders and A-7 Corsairs. A Sandy has one mission: get to the survivor, bring the rescue force forward, and put themselves between that survivor on the ground and the enemy. They are committed to this. This is what they live for, and this is what they've trained for over many, many years. The A-10 force and the rescue force did a fantastic job rescuing Dude 44 Alpha. He was recovered Friday afternoon. As I said, and the nation needs to know this was an incredibly brave and courageous mission, and a testament to the courage, skill, and tenacity of the joint force and our leaders. And especially a daylight option, having the guts to try means so much to so many. Meanwhile, the backseater, as the President and the Secretary have said, had continued to work and survive. Through the hours of daylight, Dude 44 Bravo, the backseater, evaded. Using every means available, the efforts of the United States military, the Central Intelligence Agency, and others were attempting to find and locate with precision Dude 44 Bravo, the backseater. A note on the backseater and the front seater. The single most important contributor to a successful rescue operation is the spirit of attack inside the heart of that downed aviator. Their will to survive, their will to evade, their will to recover is everything. In this case, the backseater's absolute commitment to surviving made much of our efforts possible. On Saturday, 4 April, after establishing positive communications with the backseater, we learned, as the President said, that he was injured and actively evading enemy forces. And thanks to our interagency partners, we were able to get eyes on his location and positively ID him. Throughout this entire time, the enemy force continued to search for 44 Bravo, and the joint force continued to strike them over and over and over again. Fighting off marginal weather in Iran and the enemy's search for a second time on Saturday, at the recommendation of the CENTCOM commander and at the approval of the Secretary and the President, we launched a rescue task force to recover Dude 44 Bravo. Again, this came to the President and the Secretary for approval, this time with a much larger force package based on the time that the enemy had to prepare to find 44 Bravo. Again, this force was protected by A-10 Warthogs using the Sandy call sign. And this force had one single mission: do everything they can to bring an American home. This meant having a plan, being prepared to execute that plan, and more importantly, being prepared for multiple simultaneous contingencies. And because of this force's professionalism, grit, and determination, fight off two enemies at the same time. The enemy searching for 4-4 Bravo and contingencies, which anyone who has done these types of missions knows we run into every single time. The force fought off both of those enemies incredibly well. During the period of darkness on Saturday, and as the Secretary said, into Easter Sunday and into the daylight, the force fought its way in and rescued Dude 4-4 Bravo. They were protected overhead by an air armada, including tactical drones, strike aircraft, and others. The force fought through multiple simultaneous contingencies, something no other nation, no other military can do, and safely returned Dude 4-4 Bravo, the backseater, home, and all other Americans home as well. At midnight 12 local Eastern Time, Easter Sunday, more than 50 hours after the start of this operation, the Joint Personnel Recovery Center declared Dude 4-4 Bravo, both the front and backseater, returned to friendly territory. The courage demonstrated by both the pilot and the weapons system officer while isolated and them invading the enemy cannot be overstated. Their grit and warfighting tenacity is a direct result of the absolute trust they have in our rescue forces, their training, and their will to survive and return. They always knew that we would be ordered to go get them, and they always knew that we would be coming to get them. These two operations reflect our nation's most sacred obligation to our military service members. We leave no one behind, bless you. It also perfectly captures the first truth of our special operations forces, that people are more important than hardware. That is the standard we live by, and the rescue forces that execute these missions operate under a clear motto: these things we do that others may live. Their actions were a direct embodiment of that commitment to others, and I could not be more proud of each and every one of them today. As the Secretary said to our enemies, this operation serves as a clear reminder of the capability and will of America's joint force. The United States of America will recover our warfighters anywhere in the world, under any conditions, when we want to. We will always bring overwhelming skill and firepower. To every member of the Joint Force, our interagency partners, the leadership at CENTCOM, and our leaders at the Department and above, thank you. I'm proud of each and every one of you, and thankful to our deployed forces and their families. And lastly, and most importantly, to Dude 4-4, welcome home. Job well done. Thank you.
Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And these two gentlemen have been, from day one, they've been perfecto. You know, I got to know General Kane in my first term because he was able to take out ISIS in 4 weeks instead of the 4-year projection that was given to me by other much lesser generals. And I said, you know, if I ever do this again, that's going to be the head of my Joint Chiefs of Staff. And we worked it that way, didn't we? It's amazing. He took out ISIS. We defeated ISIS in 4 weeks. I was told it would take 4 years. I flew to Iraq to find out, with the greatest equipment in the world, why would it take 4 years? And he told me, sir, it won't. It'll take 4 weeks and you'll have time left over. And that's exactly what happened. So he's great. And Pete, all I can say is that he was treated very unfairly. And now those same people that treated him unfairly, that fought against him, that called me up and said, what a great choice he was. They said, well, what happened during his nomination? What happened to you? I'm telling you, people that were not for him, senators, friends of mine, sir, I don't think you're doing the right thing. Now they're calling me up. What a choice. These two guys are fantastic. And John Ratcliffe was incredible. It was actually their genius that called us he was 40 miles away, and he said, we're seeing something moving up in the mountain. This is at night. And they kept the camera on him for 45 minutes. It wasn't moving, and they said, probably wrong, but we're seeing something moving. This is a vast mountain, vast, thick, with bushes, trees. He said, we see something moving 40 miles away. It was the head of a human being, I'm telling you, it's moving. And then all of a sudden, 45 minutes later, he moved a lot. He stood up, and they said, we have him. And that was really the beginning of something incredible. We had an idea where he was, but not specifically, and it's a big mountain. So I want to thank the CIA, too. I don't think they get enough credit for the great job they've done. Yes, please.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for this great opportunity. Country, it has super army. You make a difference, Mr. President. Thank you for your greatest leadership.
Thank you.
I have two quick questions, Mr. President. What was your reaction when you learned that Kurdistan region had resumed exporting oil to the international market with your support as United States of America?
Well, I expected that. We've gotten along with the Kurds for a long time, so I expected that.
Another question, what would be your reaction if the Iranian people rise up against their regime during a ceasefire, Mr. President?
Well, they should do it, but again, the consequences are great. I mean, they were told, if you protest, you will be shot immediately. You saw what happened to the young wrestler. He was a great champion, by the way. He was a great wrestler, one of the top in the world. And he and his two friends were hung. And all they did was say a little bit about liberty. They wanted liberty, and they were violently executed. But the number is up to probably 45,000 people were killed. So, when somebody stays in a house, when they know if they walk out of the house to protest, they'll be immediately shot and killed. And they issued that. That was publicly issued. It's not a secret. That's why so many people say, oh, well, why are you doing this way? We can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We got regime change. We do. We're dealing with a much different regime than before. We're dealing with different people. They're smarter. I think they're sharper and far less radical. We have regime change, but we didn't do this for regime change. We did it for the fact, and my view was very simple. I saw somebody said, oh, he doesn't have a plan. I have the best plan of all, but I'm not going to tell you what my plan is. They want me to say, here's my plan. We're going to attack at 9:47 in the morning, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to... And if you don't do that, they say, I have a plan. These people know what the plan is. Everybody here knows what the plan is. But it's very unfair to say, because I don't mind being insulted. I've been insulted for many years by the fake news, but you can't... It's so bad for people that are so you just saw two great, and John Ratcliffe, three unbelievable people. They have a plan. Every single thing has been thought out by all of us. But I can't reveal the plan to the media. So, but we're just thrilled by the success of this operation. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've said Iranians would be mad if you stopped these attacks, but why would they want you to blow up their infrastructure, to cut off their power? Wouldn't that be punishing Iranians for the actions of the regime?
They would be willing and it's suffering. They would be willing to suffer that in order to have freedom. The Iranians and we've had numerous intercepts. Please keep bombing. Bombs that are dropping near their homes. Please keep bombing. Do it. And these are people that are living where the bombs are exploding. And when we leave and we're not hitting those areas, they're saying, please come back, come back, come back. These are the people. I don't know what they do. All I can tell you is they want freedom. They have lived in a world that you know nothing about. It's a violent, horrible world where if you protest, you are shot. Remember the great woman protests where they had 400,000, 500,000 women, and they were all enthused and they were going to protest, and everybody said, oh, the regime's going to come to an end. And then all of a sudden, boom, boom, 5, 6 different areas. A woman would go down right between the eyes. They had snipers. They had 5 snipers. That's all it took. And those 400,000 or 500,000 women said, "Oh my God, what's that? Oh, look over there. What's that?" A woman shot right between the eyes. And after 5 or 6 of them go down, then you start hearing the purr through the vast number of people. And then they said, "Oh my God, who would do that?" And they're incredible people, but they've lived so horribly. They've lived so horribly. You know, Iran was a great country if you go back 25 years ago or so. The Persian people, they're incredible, smart, brilliant actually. And I know so many. I know coming from New York, originally I know so many people from Iran. They're incredible people, incredible energy and very, very brilliant people. But when you're standing in a group and protesting and you have a woman, in the case of the woman, remember the Great Woman March, everybody was saying, "Oh, this is the end of the country." And then snipers selectively picked. Every single one was shot right between the eyes from a long distance. They were on top of buildings. Nobody even knew where they were, where they're coming from. This wasn't like a machine gun, which is also very bad. They've done that too. They did that recently. This was snipers sitting on the top of buildings, aiming and hitting women. And when they see people go down, and all of a sudden there's a riot in the reverse direction, and they never came out again. And a lot of the news doesn't talk about that. They talk about, oh, women's rights. You want to see women's rights? You're not going to see it there. It's amazing when I see some of the stupid people like, you know, AOC plus 3, all that group. They talk about, oh, freedom for Iran. They don't tell you the real facts. Women, men, gays. How about gays for Iran? They kill the gays. They throw them off buildings. So I wonder what's going on. I can only say this. They want us to keep bombing, even if it jeopardizes, because their life is in much greater danger. They want freedom for Iran, but it's very hard for them to protest. I actually tell them, I said, don't go out. I fully understand. Nobody in this room would go out. I don't think there's any, because frankly, it's not a question of bravery. We're all brave, right? You're brave, I'm brave, we're all brave. But we're also intelligent. If you have people shooting at you, expert shots with the best rifles you can get, and hitting you right between the eyes every single time, and you're looking here and you're seeing and you're looking here, you're out of there. I don't care who it is.
Please. Mark Meredith, Fox News.
I know that.
Oh, thank you.
How would I know that? Go ahead.
America's watching. No.
Good job.
Can we go back to the weekend? First off, was everyone on board with the operation, or were there people that were trying to talk you out of going through with the operation this weekend?
Not everybody was on board.
Somebody else within?
No, there was military people, very professional, that preferred not doing it. These two were totally on board, which was very important. They weren't, it would have had a little difficulty. But no, there were military people that said, you just don't do this. You don't go into the heart of a very powerful military. You know, this is, hey, you have countries and countries. You have some countries where military is not their strong suit. This whole thing is militarized like nobody's ever seen before. Half the people are wearing uniforms. And we had people within the military. Usually it's not done. That's one of the reasons. You know, I was surprised. Somebody said it's the only time it's ever been done. I said, that's not possible. But it is possible, because you're going into hundreds of thousands of soldiers along the path. I mean, look at some of the helicopters, how they got hit. So, yeah, there were people within the military that said it's a wise. And don't forget, how many men did you send altogether, approximately, for the operation?
I'd love to keep that a secret. Mr.
Okay, well, we are. But I will tell you, the number, I'll keep it a secret, but it was hundreds and hundreds of these people. It's pretty good. Is he central casting? But hundreds of people went into this journey. Hundreds of people could have been killed. Forget about the equipment, a lot of equipment, nobody cares. Hundreds of people could have been killed. So we had people that were within the military that said this is not a wise, and I understood that, but I decided to do it.
Was there a point that that you were thinking there's too much on the line, and somebody was saying maybe we abort this now and wait? I mean, given the resource like the general said, it seemed like there was so much on the line here. You must have been thinking this could have completely changed.
So the first one, which was in many ways as dangerous as the second, I guess it gets, because we're flying over daylight. You know, we're the best at the world at night. We have goggles that nobody. We have goggles. I've tried them. They're unbelievable. I see better with the goggles at night than I see without them during daylight. I mean, daylight today, we have a beautiful day. You see just as well with goggles. In many ways, it's enhanced. So we have the best in the world. So it's much safer for us to do it at night, whereas other people, no other country has that capability. They don't have that particular piece of equipment like we do. But when I was told flying and in daylight, I think we flew 7 hours over Iran, and that's a long time, over unbelievably hostile territory where they have nothing but weapons. We took out their anti-aircraft, which is great. We took out their radar, which is great. We took out a lot, but they still have, you know, what hit this one was a handheld shoulder missile, heat-seeking missile. So it's not like, you know, they're totally whatever. And they have probably a little luck, because you got to get lucky. But they shot it, and it got sucked in right by the engine. But these guys were out of there. They were great. Their timing was great. But no, I was told that this is a very dangerous mission. I understand. They didn't say it's a foolish mission. They said, you know, we're going to be sacrificing hundreds of people do this. This is, I mean, you have tankers that are flying over this area so that because the flight was so long, they had to refuel. It's a very dangerous mission. I just felt it was worth it. If you would have told me that we would have been successful, gotten both, and nobody was even essentially injured, I would have said that would be impossible. Yeah, Bruce.
Mr. President, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Given that you are now dealing, you say, with a more reasonable, less extreme leadership in Iran, what does that mean for the protesters, for the human rights movement in that country after this conflict?
Well,
what's your
positive
expectation?
Yeah, if they assume control, if we do something and they assume control, I think it's very positive, a big step. I don't think you'd see the radicalization that you have seen in the last. Look what happened. I mean, women are being executed because they're not properly clothed, they say. They're not properly clothed, and they execute the women. They shoot them right on the street. No, you have a much different group of people. Now, I'm not saying we are dealing with them. Essentially, they have till 8 o'clock tomorrow night, Eastern time. But we are dealing with them. I think it's going well. Mr. Witkoff is here, and JD's involved in the dealing. Mr. Witkoff is sitting right here, and I think it's going fine, but we'll have to see. You have to understand, we've been dealing with these people for 47 years. I'm standing here with a much more powerful Iran as of a month ago, not anymore. Right now, they are decapitated. But I'm standing here a month ago with a much more powerful Iran than it was at any point during 47 years. This should have been handled by 7 presidents, a lot of presidents. And those presidents are saying now, every one of them to their friends, we should have done this a long time ago. So it's not something I like doing. It's very dangerous, and we're getting them at the height of their strength. If I didn't terminate the Barack Hussein Obama Iran nuclear deal, they would have had don't forget, that was a path to a nuclear weapon. Remember this. He chose Iran over Israel, pure and simple. How Israel can vote for a Democrat is if you're Jewish in New York City or any place else in this country, and how you can vote for a Democrat is unbelievable, because he chose Iran, a very hostile Iran. Remember when he filled up a 757 with cash, billions of dollars of cash, and he sent it over to them. Then they gave them tens of billions of dollars. He chose Iran over Israel and really the Arab world, if you look, because, you know, the other, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, I mean, you take a look. I mean, I can add Kuwait and I can add Bahrain, and you can add others. He chose such an unlikely candidate. Nobody could believe it. Frankly, if you're going to choose between Iraq And Iran, he should have befriended Iraq. He went in the exact opposite direction of all thinking. And he made a terrible mistake. But that was a road to a nuclear weapon. And when I terminated that, everyone said, oh, he terminated it. It was one of the best things we ever did because he had a road to a nuclear weapon. And it was a very short-term deal. You know, countries don't do 10-year deals. Countries do hundreds of years. You don't do a 10-year deal. For a country, this isn't, you're a landlord and you're renting a store on a certain street and you give somebody a 5-year or 10-year lease. This is a country. It was a short-term deal. It was ready to expire. I terminated it before it expired. Took a lot of heat, and it was one of the best things I ever did because he would have had a nuclear weapon. Then he would have had another nuclear weapon, had those beautiful B-2 bombers not gone in 8 months ago, and obliterated that site. And by the way, the word is obliteration. CNN said, well, maybe it wasn't complete. It was so complete that they still haven't been able to get it. It was obliteration. But if we didn't hit them, that was a courageous decision, too, because we had all those planes flying in at night with very little cover, unbelievable stealth planes, and they were able to do their job. If we didn't do that, Iran would have had a nuclear weapon at a high level, either one of those two instances. And if they did, in my opinion, I told this to Bibi Netanyahu yesterday, Israel would have been extinguished. Large portions of the Middle East would have been extinguished, whether it's Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, or others. And you saw that with thousands of missiles raining down upon them. They didn't think they were going to be hit. They thought they'd be watching us fight. And all of a sudden, UAE got hit by 1,500 missiles. He would have taken them out also. And they were powerful. If I didn't come along and terminate the Obama deal, which was terrible, the Iran nuclear deal was a road to a nuclear weapon, a big one, unlimited, legally. I terminated it without even much thought. It was so easy. I terminated that, and then the B-2 bombers. And I did one other thing. I had killed Qasem Soleimani, who was an evil genius. And the reason I did it, I heard he was going to knock out 5 of our military bases. And had he lived, I believe we would be fighting perhaps a different Iran right now, because he's never been replaced, you know. And I did one other, but this one was not picked up. Osama bin Laden. If you read my book, I said you got to take him out 1 year before the World Trade Center came down. So I wish you'd read the book. But you, as a president, to be a good president, I believe you have to have good instincts, and a lot of this is instinct. Yeah, please.
Thank you so much for taking my question, Mr. President. Last week you suggested that Europe should take the lead on reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Has circumstances changed now that you're issuing a direct 48-hour ultimatum? And secondly, would a new ceasefire include Israel, or would it just be between Iran and the US?
I can't talk about ceasefire, but I can tell you that we have an active, willing participant on the other side. They would like to be able to make a deal. I can't say any more than that. But
Mr. President, you've listed the goals. Excuse me.
Please, go ahead.
You've listed the goals.
Who you with?
My name is Diakur. I'm with the largest Kurdish media outlet, Ruda Media Network. It's based in Iran.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, you said before that you don't want the Kurdish forces to enter Iran and be harmed. Do you still want them to stay away, or what role do you expect them to play now?
I'd rather have them stay away.
And then
I'd rather have them stay away because I think they bring with them some problems and some difficulties. And I don't think they bring death, to themselves. But I'd rather have them stay away. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the question. Deliberate attacks on civilian infrastructure violate the Geneva Conventions and international law.
Who are you with?
I'm with the New York Times. Zolan from the New York Times. Are you
failing?
Are you concerned?
Circulation way down at the New York Times.
Are you concerned that your threat to bomb power plants and bridges amount to
No, not at all. No, I'm not. I hope I don't have to do it. But again, I just said 47 years they've been negotiating with these people. They're great negotiators.
Why would that act not
because
violate
they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. And if somebody that takes my place someday is weak and ineffective, which possibly that will happen because we had numerous presidents that were weak, ineffective, and afraid of Iran, we're never going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And if you think it's okay for people that are sick of mind, that are tough, smart, and sick, really sick, from a policy standpoint, from a any which way you want to say, mentally, these are disturbed people. If you think I'm going to allow them, and powerful and rich, to have a nuclear weapon, you can tell your friends at the New York Times, not going to happen.
Violating international law.
Quiet. You no longer have credibility at the New York Times because the New York Times said, oh, Trump won't win the election, and I won in a landslide. I won every swing state. New York Times said, oh, Trump won't win the election. New York Times has no credibility. The credibility they have is it used to be all the news that's fit to print. The old gray lady, it was great, but they're running on past fumes, and you can't keep doing that. You have to be able to give the correct news. And people like you, who I know, are fake. You're fake. Go ahead, please.
Your messaging on the war has moved from the war is coming to an end to war going to be bombing Iran to the Stone Ages. Right. And we've heard a range of those kind of messages. So which is it? Are you winding this down or are you escalating it?
I can't tell you. I don't know. I can't tell you. It depends what they do. This is a critical period. They have a period of, till tomorrow at 8 o'clock. I gave them an extension. They asked for an extension of 7 days, right? I said, Steve, give them 10 days. 10 days is up actually today, so I gave them 11, I guess, indirectly. I thought it was inappropriate the day after Easter. I want to be a nice person. They have till tomorrow. Now, we'll see what happens. I can tell you they're negotiating, we think, in good faith. We're going to find out. We're getting the help of some incredible countries that want this to be ended because it affects them also. A lot of people are affected by this. But we're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And after that, they're going to have no bridges. They're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah. Stone Ages. CNN fake news.
Are you willing to make a deal that does not include reopening the Strait of Hormuz, or is that now a top priority?
I would say it's a very big priority because, see, that's one thing that's a little different than other things. We can bomb the hell out of them. We can knock them out for a loop. But to close the strait, all you need is one terrorist that somehow has a truck loaded with, because you can carry them in trucks, large trucks, a water mine, drop them in the water, and now you tell people that own ships that cost $1 billion to don't worry about the mine. You can do that even just by saying we put mines in the water. So it's not like the rest. We can knock out their military. We already have. We've knocked out their Navy. We've knocked out their Air Force completely. We've knocked out 158 ships in 3 days. We've knocked out even their mine droppers. They don't have any mine droppers anymore, but they put them on other boats, and they could drop them. I'm not even sure they have any mines there, by the way. I'm not sure. I'm personally, they say there might be 8. I don't know. I think there might be none because they're very good bullshit artists. That's why for 47 years they've been bullshitting other presidents, and they haven't done the job. And people are living in hell. You live in that country, they're living in hell. No, I think that 47 years of this stuff is long enough. They're at the weakest point they've ever been. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft weaponry, they have no radar, they have no communication. In fact, the biggest problem we have in our negotiation is that they can't communicate. I said to Steve, what are they saying? Sir, they can't communicate. They have no method of communication. So we're communicating like they used to communicate 2,000 years ago with children, bringing a note back and forth. They have no communication. But all I want to see is I want to have a safe world, and you're not going to have a safe world. Israel will be gone. The Middle East will be gone, and then they're coming for Europe. And I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed in NATO, very. I think that NATO, I think it's a mark on NATO that will never disappear in my mind. You know, they're coming to see me on Wednesday. They're going to say, oh, we'll do this, we'll do that. Now they all of a sudden want to send things, you know. But they said it loud and clear at the beginning when I spoke to UK of all. I would have said they would have been the first because they're the oldest. And I say, yeah, I'd love to have a little help. He said, no, sir, we'd rather wait till you win. I said, I don't need help after we win. They have 2 old broken aircraft carriers, barely work. I said, I guess we can use them. Who the hell knows? I called the general. He didn't even want them. He said, we don't really need them. We got the SS Abraham Lincoln, sir. We don't need them. Do you know, we have, in terms of technology, we had one day 101 missiles going at 2,700 miles an hour, aimed at the Abraham Lincoln. 101 missiles. Out of 101 missiles, 101 missiles were shot down. Unbelievable technology. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I don't know if that would have been possible, but 10 years ago that wouldn't have been possible. 101 missiles heading to a ship that's not that far off the coast. And out of the 101 missiles, we shot down all 101. We have weaponry. The Patriots are unbelievable. We have weaponry that's unbelievable, yeah.
Just to clarify.
Go ahead, please. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said earlier today during the egg roll that you would like to take Iran's oil, but Americans want U.S. forces home.
Correct.
What's that trade-off?
If I had my choice, yeah, because I'm a businessman first. With Venezuela, as you know, the war was over in about 45 minutes. And we have great people running Venezuela, very good people. I mean, the relationship is good. And we are a partner with Venezuela. And we've taken hundreds of millions of barrels, hundreds of millions. Over 100 million barrels already is in Houston, refined and out. And paid for that war many, many times over, many times over. You know, the old days, to the victim. Okay, you know that. To the winner belong the spoils. Go the spoils. And I've said, why don't we use it? To the victor, go the spoils. And we don't have that. We haven't had that in this country probably in 100 years, because even the Second World War, you look at the Second World War, we didn't have it with the Second World War. We helped rebuild all those countries. We rebuilt Germany. How about Germany telling us that, well, it's not their war. We had nothing to do with it. They wanted me to go and tell them everything I was doing. We didn't know anything about it. Well, if I would have told them, they would have leaked it, and we wouldn't have been nearly as successful, possibly, right? But to the victor belong the spoils. So we haven't heard that in, I think, maybe hundreds of years. Now with Venezuela, and just so you understand, the people of Venezuela, they say if I ran for president of Venezuela, I'm polling higher than anybody has ever polled in Venezuela. So after I'm finished with this, I can go to Venezuela. I will quickly learn Spanish. It won't take too long. I'm good at language. And I will go to Venezuela. I'm going to run for president. But we're very happy with the president-elect that we have right now, the people that are running it. If you remember Bush with Iraq, they fired the generals, they fired the police, they fired the people that worked in their equivalent of the White House. They fired everybody. And you know what they had? They had a mess. And you know what happened? ISIS formed. Those generals and those soldiers got together. The police got together. They all got together. They formed ISIS. Not going to happen with us. So Venezuela has been an incredible situation. We went in. We were very successful. Military power like nobody's ever seen. The general, Venezuelan general, said, I was on that site. I said, I've never seen ferocity like that. I've been doing this for 40 years. He said, I've never seen it. They hit us from 17 different. They were all set. They saw that big, beautiful aircraft carrier, the Ford in that case, and planes were pouring off it at 1 o'clock in the morning. So typically when you see that late at night, you know, you could be in trouble, right? And we were all ready. They had their equipment. It was Russian. and they had Chinese equipment. It was all set. They were going to give us a fight. He said, and then they came, and they came at speeds like we've never seen. And they came at 17 different angles. The general and his people, that was a lot of angles. They hit him from every angle. He said, we knew it was over in 3 minutes. We were waiting for them. Their equipment didn't work, and there's a reason it didn't work. Someday we'll explain that to people. They pressed the button, nothing happened. They pressed it again and again, nothing happened. And he said, we knew this whole thing was over in 3 minutes. We've never seen any, he used the word ferocity. The ferocity of these planes from 17 different angles, and it was over. They went inside, and remember, that was on a military base with thousands of soldiers. And those soldiers looked and they said, get the hell out of here. Thousands. We didn't have thousands. We had like 200 people. So we have a great military. And I'll tell you what, somehow this rescue captured the world's attention, more so than normally. You're talking about 2 people. But this rescue captured the world's attention. But we did it in Venezuela. That was amazing. And now we have a very bad man in prison and going to trial. I mean, he released, aside from the drugs, which he was terrible, Maduro released hundreds of thousands of people from jails into our country. Drug dealers, murderers, the worst people in the world were released into our country because we had a stupid president who probably didn't know, and we had a border czar who never went to the border and never once called our great Border Patrol agents, right? Not once, Kamala. She never called the Border Patrol. She never said, how are we doing? I used to call the Border Patrol guys every day. You can ask them. Paul, ask any one of them. Brandon, ask them all the time. How are we doing? How are we doing? And we now, I'm proud to say, have a totally sealed border. 9 months, nobody is coming through our border. And nobody even tries because they know they're not going to get through. So we don't have caravans anymore. So maybe 1 or 2 more and we'll be done.
Mr. President, are you allowed to, or are you willing to end this conflict with Iran charging tolls for passage through the strait?
Us charging tolls?
Iran.
What about us charging tolls?
Is that something you're considering?
I'd rather do that than let them have them, right? Why shouldn't we? We're the winner. We won, okay? They are militarily defeated. The only thing they have is the psychology of, oh, we're going to drop a couple of mines in the water, all right? No, we have a concept where we'll charge tolls, okay? I thought you meant us. Your question would have been more accurate if you said us. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So just to clarify, in order for Iran to successfully meet your deadline tomorrow, do they have to make a deal, open the strait, or both?
We have to have a deal that's acceptable to me. And part of that deal is going to be we want free traffic of oil and everything else.
Mr. President, thank you very much. You've said glory be to God in this conflict. Do you believe that God supports the United States' actions in this war?
I do, because God is good. Because God is good, and God wants to see people taken care of. God doesn't like what's happening. I don't like what's happening. Everyone says I enjoy it. I don't enjoy this. I don't enjoy it. These 2 guys don't enjoy it. You know, people say, "Oh boy, they're so tough." I don't like seeing people killed. I've ended 8 wars. Nobody's ever done it. The person who won the Nobel Prize came to me and said, you deserve the Nobel Prize. She announced that when they announced, they said, goes to Maria. She's a great person, really a good person. She said, no, this is ridiculous. They gave me the Nobel Prize. President Trump ended 8 wars. I could go over every one of them, including India and Pakistan, where the Prime Minister of Pakistan said, President Trump saved from 30 to 50 million lives. That makes me much happier than what we're doing right now. That makes me much happier. We have 1 more to end, by the way.
President, you called yesterday in your Truth Social, you called the Iranians crazy bastards.
True.
What is your response to critics who say that...
I don't care about critics.
What is your response to critics who say that it is your mental health that should perhaps be examined as this war continues?
I haven't heard that. But if that's the case, you're going to have more people like me, because our country was being ripped off on trade, on everything. for many years until I came along. So if that's the case, you're going to have more people. Dasha, go ahead.
You said that very little is off limits in Iran as far as targeting, including power plants, bridges. You've mentioned those.
Very little is off limits.
Are there certain kinds of civilian targets, though? I'm thinking schools
I don't want to tell you that. I don't want to tell you that. We have a plan because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12 o'clock. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to. We don't want that to happen. We may even get involved with helping them rebuild their nation. And you know what? If that's the case, the last thing we want to do is start with power plants, which are among the most expensive things, and bridges. You saw the bridge. The bridge went. We were very close to a deal. And then I got a call from Mr. Witkoff, Mr. Kushner, and J.D. saying, I think they're breaking the deal. I said, tell them that's okay. Don't worry about it. But tell them to look out their window and watch. And within 45 minutes, I gave the order to knock out the biggest bridge. I gave the order, knock out the biggest bridge in, I believe, the Middle East, but the biggest bridge in Iran. And within 10 minutes after I gave that order, that bridge was over. So do I want to do that? No. Do I want to destroy their infrastructure? No. It will take them 100 years to rebuild. Right now, if we left today, it would take them 20 years to rebuild their country, and it would never be as good as it was. And the only way they're going to be able to rebuild their country is to utilize the genius of the United States of America.
You voiced your displeasure with NATO in the past. Is there a danger to the U.S. not being the de facto of the leader of the alliance, and then other powers within the alliance then getting the decision making when it comes to wars and nuclear weapons?
No, it's not a danger. Look, we went to NATO. I didn't ask very strongly. I just said, hey, if you want to help, great. No, we will not help. I said, that's all right. You don't want to help? Because I've always said NATO's a paper tiger. See, NATO's a paper tiger. Putin's not afraid of NATO. Putin's afraid of us, very afraid of us. And he's explained it to me a lot of times. I got to know him very well. I know him very well. NATO's a paper tiger. NATO is us. And when we needed them, we didn't need them, by the way. We didn't need them, obviously, because they haven't helped at all. Just the opposite. They've actually gone out of their way not to help. They didn't even want to give us landing strips. Think of it. And it's not just NATO. You know who else didn't help us? South Korea didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Australia didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Japan. We've got 50,000 soldiers in Japan to protect them from North Korea. We have 45,000 soldiers in South Korea to protect us from Kim Jong-un, who I get along with very well, as you know. Do you notice he said very nice things about me? He used to call Joe Biden a mentally retarded person, okay? So don't tell me about your stuff. Joe Biden, he said he's a mentally retarded person. He was so nasty to Joe Biden. It was terrible. But to me, he likes Trump. And do you notice how nice things are with North Korea? It's very nice. But we have 45,000 people, soldiers, in harm's way, and right next to Kim Jong-un with a lot of nuclear weapons. 45, which should have never happened if a certain president, I'm not going to mention this president because I happen to like him, believe it or not, but if a certain president did his job, Kim Jong-un would not have nuclear weapons right now. But they're all afraid to do their job properly. But just to conclude and just to finish, Japan didn't help us, Australia didn't help us, South Korea didn't help us, and then you get to NATO. NATO didn't help us. There were some countries that did. Now, countries that have been good, now you could also say they're got to be a little bit more involved because they're in the territory, but Saudi Arabia has been excellent, Qatar has been excellent, UAE has been excellent, Bahrain, Kuwait. I mean, Kuwait did shoot down 3 of our planes. The only planes, really, that we lost with friendly fire, they call it. I call it unfriendly fire. They unfortunately didn't know how to use our great patriots. The pilot said, what kind of a missile's coming at us? Patriot. Boom, they got out because they know a Patriot never misses. So they had beautiful Patriots. There were planes heading in their direction. Unfortunately, they decided to shoot those planes. They were our planes. So, NATO is a paper tiger. Now, he's coming to see me on Wednesday, as you know. He's a wonderful guy. Secretary General is great. And Mark Rutte, he's a great person, but he's got, and it all began with, if you want to know the truth, Greenland. We want Greenland. They don't want to give it to us, and I said, bye-bye. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Listening in on our live stream here, you just heard from President Trump. He held a press conference there from the White House on the Iran war and answered various questions from reporters. Guys, we'll continue to cover this and our local headlines. Our news continues after this.
Welcome in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for being here at 2 o'clock. We've got a lot of news to get to, and one of the big stories we're following involves police continuing to track down leads to figure out who fired the deadly shots at Piedmont Park over the weekend. We now know that a $15,000 reward is being offered, and our Deidre Dukes joins us live from Grady Memorial Hospital. Deidre, you were in the room. I was listening to you ask questions of Atlanta's mayor, assistant police chief. What are they sharing with us today?
Yeah, it was a very deadly weekend, very violent weekend here in the city of Atlanta. Really, they said it was convergence of so many events and activities. A holiday weekend with Easter, of course, 404 Day celebrated here in Atlanta. And then you have the start of spring break for several metro area school districts. And so with that culmination, you just had tens of thousands of people thronging into the city of Atlanta for various events. And we saw multiple shootings, some deadly over the weekend. We're joining you live from Grady Hospital, where some of those victims were transported over the weekend, and some of them are currently being treated here. You talked about the shooting that captured the attention of so many, the shooting at Piedmont Park on Saturday, where 16-year-old Tiana Robinson was killed and a 15-year-old wounded when they were struck by bullets as crowds gathered to celebrate 404 Day. Investigators tell us that at least 4 shooters opened fire from 3 different areas of the park, leaving bystanders with really nowhere to run. Now, that violence was widespread, as I said. In Zone 4 on Washington Street, a 3-year-old was killed by a gunshot inside an apartment. On Campbellton Road, a birthday celebration ended in gunfire with 4 young people shot. Other incidents on Edgewood and Spark Street involved heated disputes and accidental discharges that turned deadly. Now, APD investigators are currently scrubbing surveillance and body cam footage to hunt down the shooters in that Piedmont Park shooting. Here's what the mayor and APD officials had to tell us about the series of shootings we saw over the weekend.
Our concern is for the whole city and the elimination of the root causes of crime for the entire city of Atlanta. We've had incidents this weekend that people with guns should not have had guns, and incidents where people have injured family members on purpose or accidentally, and of course, this very high-profile incident that occurred that led to the death of Tiana Robinson at Piedmont Park.
We saw violence play out in many quadrants of the city, but as the mayor said, a lot of those incidents were beyond the control of the police department. 3 of those incidents were self-inflicted gunshot wounds where all 3 of those individuals probably shouldn't have even been in possession of a firearm.
Now, a $15,000 reward is being offered for information leading to an arrest in the Piedmont Park shooting case. Anyone with information in that shooting is asked to contact Crime Stoppers at 404-577-TIPS. But again, Ariel, just a very violent, tragically deadly weekend here in the city of Atlanta with multiple shootings reported in the course of 48 hours.
Deidre, incredible. And you know, you want to go out and have a good time. It's a holiday weekend, 404 Day celebration, celebrating Atlanta's pride in Piedmont Park, a central part of our city. So to the fact that this violence happened is truly tragic and unfortunate. It's interesting how police, I was listening to parts of that news conference, how they wanted to characterize it. One thing they were saying, this wasn't a teen takeover. We hear a lot of that and about a lot of different teen takeovers that have happened in the city, but I did hear them clarify that that was not what this was as those 404 Day celebrations were happening.
That's right. No teen takeover, just several people out having a good time, a large group gathering there. When folks pulled out guns for whatever reason, it's not clear on what sparked the shooting, but gunfire erupting there. Also stressing that the 2 young ladies, the teens who were wounded, innocent bystanders, had nothing to do with anything in regards to the shooting. Unfortunately, one young lady tragically lost her life. Another teen injured in that shooting. Police urging anyone with information to contact them so they can catch those responsible.
Deidre, final question or point for you here. One other thing I heard police say that I thought was really interesting is that they did say that Atlanta police can bring charges not just against teens who break curfew or young people who break the curfew, but also parents and caregivers as well. And it seems like they're really trying to stress this message of parents and guardians, you are responsible for the children in your care. And if you don't take that responsibility seriously, you could face consequences as well.
That's right. They made it very clear, stressing curfew will be strictly enforced, stressing that really it starts at home, and so that if at all possible, it is the responsibility of parents and other caregivers to really know where their children are, their teenagers are, and to have them act accordingly. After a certain time, a certain hour, those young people should not be out perhaps in the park or wherever they may be gathering. The mayor also noting that those in the community, local leaders, police departments, not only in the city of Atlanta but in the metro area, are doing what they can to provide these young people safe spaces to hang out, to participate in activities. But the bottom line is, at a certain time of night, in certain situations, it is not conducive for a young person to be out in these areas, and it certainly is the responsibility of the same parents who perhaps don't want you telling their children what to do to take responsibility for their children and ensure that they are where they're supposed to be and not in an environment where they could be harmed or cause undue harm to others.
Deidre, thank you so much for joining us live, keeping us informed as to how the situation unfolded and what police are saying this afternoon. I know you'll have more for us this evening as you continue to work on the details of this developing story. So Deidre Dukes, thank you so much. As we continue here at 2 o'clock, you guys, I want to continue to keep you updated on the violence that happened over Easter weekend here in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. So I see some of you here in our TikTok comments asking if everyone is all right. And I have to tell you that as to that situation that unfolded in Piedmont Park, one teen girl died and we know another is recovering. So a separate situation that unfolded early this morning in southwest Atlanta, so far from Midtown Atlanta. 4 teenagers were shot Sunday night. It happened near Sparks and Lee Streets, and police say that the victims range in age from 16 to 18 years old, with at least one of those teens in critical condition. Police have not identified a suspect and no arrests have been made. They continue to try to figure out what led up to this. They say 2 victims arrived to Grady Memorial Hospital in private vehicles, and all 4 victims the names have not yet been released, but police continue to work this situation. During the news conference today, Atlanta police addressed violence that happened across the city over the weekend. They wanted to stress that crime is still down, but they say that these incidents that happened over this past weekend is something that they're investigating, pointing out that spring break from a lot of school districts is all happening somehow on the week concurrently. So a lot of school districts are out, and they say that this could have been a reason why a lot of teens are no longer engaged and could have led to some of the unhealthy habits that we have seen this weekend, leading to violence. Now, the police addressed some other incidents that happened this weekend in terms of violence. Let's take a listen to the assistant police chief as he explained some of those.
As the mayor said, we had a very busy weekend, very difficult weekend this weekend as it relates to violence in the city. We saw violence play out in many quadrants of the city, but as the mayor said, a lot of those incidents were beyond the control of the police department. 3 of those incidents were self-inflicted gunshot wounds where all 3 of those individuals probably shouldn't have even been in possession of a firearm. We had a 59-year-old male who shot himself in the leg with a firearm and then was less than truthful with the police and said he got robbed. We had an 18-year-old male who was committing a Cash App scam with an individual, and as he's running away, his pants fall down, he grabs his pants, and he accidentally shoots himself. And, we also had the tragic incident of the 3-year-old who's killed inside of an apartment at 12 at night, left there by the parent who's trying to go to work and make a living, leaves it with a 70-year-old babysitter, and somehow that 3-year-old ends up with the gunshot wound to the head. And then we have an incident in Zone 6 where we had a father and a son who get into an altercation, and the father tells his son he's going to shoot him because his son has a drug addiction problem, and the father follows through on that and shoots that son. Those incidents, the Atlanta Police Department really cannot control. But let's be clear, the ones that we can control, we will come after those people. We will be looking at cameras. We'll be looking at license plate readers, and we will be looking at cell phone video. So we just urge any person that may have been at Piedmont Park or any of these locations where we had shooting, if you see something, if you recorded something, if you know something, come forward and give us that information. As the mayor said, you want to do it anonymously, just sure dial 404-577-8477. And let me be clear on that. We are going to continue to come after these people. Accountability is coming.
So you were listening in as Atlanta's police chief updated on some of the incidents Atlanta faced this past weekend and what the Atlanta Police Department is doing to try to combat the violence that we're seeing. Some of you guys talking here in our comments on YouTube, TikTok, how sad this situation is, and it absolutely is right. So sad. No one should have to lose their life, especially on a holiday weekend. So this is something police are continuing to monitor, and we'll keep you updated as we hear of any new developments of those who are being charged or arrested with these crimes. But in the meantime, I want to continue to keep you updated on some other stories we're following. We know that a former Georgia cheerleader is sharing her story after her ex-coach, Charles Moore III, has pled guilty this week in Gwinnett County to grooming and sexual exploitation of a minor. Lily Penn is now 19 years old, but she says her ordeal began when she was a 15-year-old student in Moore's tumbling class. According to the cheerleader, she says her coach began communicating with her frequently on Snapchat and made efforts to get close to her family members. The situation escalated when Moore began sending inappropriate texts and asking Penn to meet him for sexual encounters in his car at the cheer gym. Despite Penn expressing hesitation and telling him she had a boyfriend, she says Moore became intimate with her. He was Moore's 33 years old and coached at several cheer organizations across Metro Atlanta and a high school in Walton County. So after pleading guilty, a Gwinnett County judge sentenced him to 25 years with the first 12 years to be served in prison. So I'd like to let you listen in on some of what Lily Penn told us.
16, he was like, no, it's okay. This is normal for coaches and athletes. Like, you're old enough. And I was like, it doesn't really feel normal. And then after that happened, he kind of switched and was like, no one can find out about this. You can't tell anyone.
Now, it's unclear if other victims have come forward to investigators since Moore was arrested in 2024. He does face additional charges in Barrow and Walton counties, but regarding this guilty plea, Penn says it provides a sense of relief and closure. So we'll keep you updated on this story. Really quickly here, you guys, I want to let you know here nationally what we're following in terms of the partial government shutdown, because House Republicans are truly at odds over funding the Department of Homeland Security and how it is to be done. Congress is on recess this week, and that means there's little lawmakers can try to do to align with the Senate's Homeland Security bill. The agency is not fully funded. FEMA, Coast Guard, Secret Service agents all working without pay. House Speaker Mike Johnson has signed on to a plan after pressure from President Trump, but he's dealing with backlash from conservatives. Both houses of Congress are off for the spring break, and it's more than a week after they passed conflicting bills to fund DHS. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is calling for representatives to get back to work, but House Republicans are still trying to figure out how to fund the government. They're at odds over the Senate's two-track funding plan. That would basically strip funding for ICE and Customs and Border Patrol into a separate bill. Conservatives won't back that option, so Republican leaders are looking at another plan, a budget reconciliation bill to fund the entire department all at once. President Trump has set a deadline of June 1st for Congress to send him that bill. Democrats are calling that idea a non-starter, saying they need to see real reform before they back more funding for ICE. Meanwhile, long lines at airports are starting to get better. We have seen that after TSA agents got retroactive pay last week. The White House is, though, proposing more airports privatize TSA security next year as this gridlock continues. 20 airports in the United States as of now do have private security checkpoints that are basically under contracts supervised by the TSA. So we'll keep you updated if that continues to happen. As we continue here at 2 o'clock, we're going to check in coming up ahead with our Chris Rosenthal as to the latest with our spring planting and what we can do there. We'll continue to keep you guys updated. Welcome back in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for being here. It is great to see you. Let's mix it up because maybe you've got time this spring break week here in Atlanta, Georgia, and you're thinking it's nice outside. I want to plant some spring plants and get ready for the summer months. Our Chris Rosenthal is out at a nursery to give us a look at how things are going. Chris, it does look like your shot is frozen, so maybe we see if we can get Chris back up. It looks like his shot might not be moving, so we're going to check in with him. In the meantime, let's see here. I want to see if maybe we check in with Alex Forbes. We have a weather forecast that Alex has put together to let us know maybe what to expect if we're planting this weekend and where to go. But okay, guys, it's a roller coaster. Give me a second. I actually do see Chris back up and unmuted. So, Chris, looks like your shot is a little blurry, but I see you, I hear you. So let's take it away and see what we can do with spring planting.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, like you said, it's springtime. People are thinking about planting, so I am here at Little Creek Farm Nursery here in Dallas, and they have a specialty here. They specialize in native plants. You know, this is the thing a lot of people are looking for nowadays. Not just, you know, necessarily pretty plants, but the native plants to this area, and that's really important here. So I'm with Mike here from the nursery, from Little Creek Farm Nursery. Mike, thanks for joining.
They've been here longer than we have, and they're great. They're for pollinators. We have to have our pollinators for our food.
Okay, guys, it looks like we cannot be great with Chris's shot right now because it keeps freezing. We're going to see what's going on and see if we can get back to him. But just so you are aware, because we're going to be checking back in with him at 3 o'clock, he is out at Little Creek Nursery. It's a mom and pop nursery in Dallas, Georgia, and it specializes in native plants. Now, they're going to talk a little bit about the importance of spring planting and native versus non-native plants coming up at 3 o'clock. And I will say the big thing here, and you heard the owner just begin to touch on this, or at least someone there with the nursery just begin to touch on this. Native plants are really good for pollinators, and especially these spring months where everything's growing and getting green. It's a wonderful way to support the local environment and ecosystem to make sure everything has what it needs. So we're going to check back in with Chris here in just a little bit, coming up at 3. But in the meantime, let's send it over to meteorologist Alex Forbes for a check of your weather forecast for the week.
A lot of cloud cover across metro Atlanta and North Georgia this afternoon as temperatures are a little more seasonable compared to what we saw over the last 2 to 3 weeks, particularly towards the back half of March and into April. Yesterday was actually our first average day in quite a while, and our first day since St. Patrick's Day that we weren't below average, or that we were either at or below average. There you go. So sunset tonight at 8:02. Do look for clouds to be present, right, particularly along and south of I-20 here through the evening hours. Up north of I-20, that's where you're seeing some more breaks in the clouds, and that does include out in Augusta, right? Looking at the cloudy skies out there as we work our way into the evening hours tonight and into tomorrow. Now, tomorrow we'll see a general clearing trend across north and central Georgia, but it's going to take a while to reach the rest of eastern Georgia. So do be on the lookout for that if you're headed out I-20 tomorrow afternoon, and I'm sure to enjoy it with temperatures in the 70s. Here we go into the Wednesday morning hours. A breeze coming in out of the northeast. That's actually going to keep temperatures a bit cooler there for Wednesday. As for this afternoon, looking for a high temperature in Atlanta around 68, 70 in Athens, 70 in Covington, 70 in Milledgeville. Mind you, with sunset at 8 something, this high temperature is happening at about 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon now. Let's talk about this because it's a developing situation that we continue to keep tabs on. The drought monitor. One, look at the state of Georgia and how much is included in at least severe drought. We'll talk more about that here in a second, but let's zoom in on our area real quick. And you're going to see from the upstate of South Carolina down into Elbert County, over into the Athens area, lifting up into Clarksville and Blue Ridge. That's where you're in extreme drought. If you think about the different levels there, that's level 4 out of 5. And we've got exceptional drought down into South Georgia. As for metro Atlanta, we are in the severe drought territory, and we really need some rain to put an into this. Just how much rain? Well, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches each week for 3 months. And I just don't see that on the horizon, unfortunately, for us here in Metro Atlanta and North Georgia. We are more than a foot below average since the beginning of September, putting us in the worst drought we've seen since 2012. And part of the reason for that is the dry air that we've been experiencing and that we're going to continue to experience here through the week ahead. That's going to put the kibosh on any rain chances as well. We were talking about tomorrow in Augusta, 74, your high temperature out there, morning clouds, afternoon sun. Copy and paste that forecast to Metro Atlanta. 74 for the afternoon, probably more sun earlier in the day. And then as we find our way towards the back half of the week, we're going to reset that warming trend with the northeasterly breeze on Wednesday before we get back into the 80s for Saturday and Sunday. It's definitely going to be a much better weekend ahead than we saw this past weekend with those rain chances non-existent.
All right, Alex, thanks so much for letting us know what to expect. You guys, I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for being here at 2 o'clock. We've got more headed your way at 3.
Hello and welcome to the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. I'm your host, Tom Haynes, here with you for the next hour, bringing you up to date on all the stories making news today. Certainly appreciate you being with us today. We're talking this afternoon to the family of a shooting victim in Piedmont Park over the weekend. This as the search continues for the shooter who opened fire, killing a 16-year-old girl. Fox 5's Annie Mapp joins us now live for the latest on the investigation and that family's reaction. Annie, they must be devastated this afternoon.
Tom, good afternoon. That victim is 16-year-old Tiana Robinson. Her family describes her as someone who was to herself but a go-getter. She was a 10th grader at North Clayton High School, and she was only here at Piedmont Park to be able to attend a 404-day festival that was going on. Her family tells me they all came together Saturday afternoon and were here for a few hours. But Tiana did ask her parents if she could stay a little longer and just ride back home with a friend, but unfortunately, we know she was never able to make it back home. Atlanta police say she was shot and killed when they predict that they believe it was multiple suspects who fired shots here on Saturday, and unfortunately she was struck by one of those and ended up losing her life here at the park. Another victim, also a teenage female, was shot and was taken to an area hospital, we're told. She has since been released and is doing much better. Tiana's parents tell me the 16-year-old had so much more life left to live. They never imagined that attending an event that, again, is meant for celebration would result in a tragedy. Just take a listen at what her mother told us earlier.
My baby girl, she don't do nothing again. She don't do nothing. She don't go nowhere. We gotta have justice. That's the only way I can sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see her.
And police again haven't made any arrests in the shooting that happened here at Piedmont Park. We do know hundreds of people were in the area that evening and throughout the day for the festival that was going on, along with other different 404-day events. But again, unfortunately, this did end in tragedy, and now officers are looking for a potential shooter. They have started a reward for anyone that has information on what could have happened. I think they've raised that up to $15,000. So they are asking anyone who was there and knows something to please come forward. Tom?
Yeah, Annie, that's what makes this so much more difficult for the family. An unimaginable loss over the weekend. But then the search for the suspect, like who's responsible for doing this, why? They must be asking themselves, was our daughter caught in the crossfire of all of this? Clearly she was an innocent victim, but just like, where did things go wrong and who is responsible?
Yeah, and I think that's a big question that police will have to answer, because again, they think that there was more than one shooter in this situation. I was able to get several videos yesterday from people who were at Piedmont Park Saturday night, and when I tell you, Tom, we heard several shots that were fired in those videos. So it's unclear. We don't know who, again, that suspect could be, but the family says justice is something that is very important to them. They say they won't be able to sleep until they know who did this to their daughter.
Well, you can't blame them, and our heart goes out to that family as they grieve the loss of that beautiful 16-year-old girl. Annie, thanks. Well, questions are growing tonight over security at Piedmont Park during that deadly shooting. The mayor says there were enough police presence for the crowd, but witnesses are telling a different story this afternoon. Let's get out to Fox 5's Rob DiRienzo, who's at the park taking a closer look, Rob, at the event itself. What more can you tell us?
Hey there, Tom. Well, I can tell you I was out here myself on Saturday night, and look, this crowd was young and they were rowdy, and we did not see a ton of police presence on hand, but the mayor does say there was adequate police staffing here for a crowd of about 1,200, but there are big questions today about the security measures in place both over the weekend and what it's going to be looking like as we get closer to the World Cup. Now, security cameras inside Piedmont Park captured the crowd on 404 Day running for cover on Saturday night. Now, detectives are now looking for as many as 4 shooters, and before that shooting that killed 16-year-old Tanaya Robinson and hurt another teen, people who were there say it was complete chaos. Take a listen.
No police presence until the situation happened later in the evening, and then there were helicopters, police cars, fire trucks, things like that. But it doesn't make you feel very safe as a resident.
Especially like a day like that, they should have more security. People shouldn't be allowed to carry firearms around kids.
And just again, take a look at that video of all of those teens just running through the park, and everybody else, mind you, the families, the small kids that were also here to enjoy 404 Day, completely running for cover. Now, at a news conference on Monday morning, Mayor Andre Dickens defended the amount of police presence here. He said that that the shooting happened after 404 Day festivities ended in a separate area of the park. I want you to listen to that.
The city code, it required a minimum staffing ratio of 1 sworn police officer for every 1,500 attendees. At its peak, this event had 1,200 people coming and going throughout the day. There were a total of 11 sworn officers, 12 private security personnel, and 2 medics were on site.
Now, Tom, something I do want to note is that throughout this entire event, forgive me if you're still with me, throughout this entire event, we really didn't see a ton of, again, security presence or metal detectors, bag checks, the sort of protocols you normally see at big events that happen at Piedmont Park. You think Music Midtown or Shaky Knees. When those types of events were here, obviously their footprint was much larger, their budget was much larger, but they had fencing, they had adequate security, metal detectors at every point. That is just not something we saw over the weekend here at Piedmont Park, Tom. Something I should also mention is that I reached out to the Piedmont Park Conservancy, which is essentially responsible for managing this park. They say everything was handled through the city. We do have some open records requests out right now to figure out what the permit process was and if any of this could have been avoided. Tom.
You know, the irony here, Rob, is that the city was promoting this event. The mayor usually attends some of the 404 Day festivities. It's something that the city is very proud of. You know, Piedmont Park is certainly an iconic spot in the city of Atlanta. Here we are, you know, I believe now less than 2 months away from the World Cup, when the entire world is going to be descending on our city. So safety is front of mind for our law enforcement teams in Atlanta. It's just, you know, the timing here couldn't be worse. And as you said, you know, it kind of raises questions about, even though the mayor says, yeah, we had enough police presence there in the park, maybe they had enough, but was that presence effective enough to curtail something like this from happening?
Yeah, and that certainly seems to be the big question, Tom. A comment I heard that kind of stuck with me is that 404 Day is meant to celebrate the best of Atlanta. Unfortunately, what we saw here over the weekend was some of the worst of Atlanta. So there are some big questions as we get closer and closer to World Cup Day, World Cup Week, World Cup Month. But outside of that, people just want to feel safe in their neighborhood park. And that's something we heard from a lot of people here today, that this was such a disappointing event because it was supposed to be a celebration and it quickly devolved. So hopefully we'll get some more clarity from police about what exactly happened, what could have been done better. But we have out here today seen an increase in police presence. We saw mounted patrols out here earlier, the horses walking around. So there is that added presence now, but obviously there are some lingering questions about what happened over the weekend.
Yeah, a really upsetting turn of events, one that ended in the death of a 16-year-old innocent girl. Rob D'Arienzo live for us covering the police presence part of this story in Piedmont Park. Rob, thanks. That fatal shooting at Piedmont Park wasn't the only violence involving teens over the weekend. In southwest Atlanta, police are searching for a gunman who opened fire on Sparks Street, we understand, wounding 4 teenagers. During a news conference today, Atlanta police addressed the surge in violence across the city. Let's listen to part of what they had to say.
As the mayor said, we had a very busy weekend, very difficult weekend this weekend as it relates to violence in the city. We saw violence play out in many quadrants of the city. But as the mayor said, a lot of those incidents were beyond the control of the police department. 3 of those incidents were self-inflicted gunshot wounds where all 3 of those individuals probably shouldn't have even been in possession of a firearm. We had a 59-year-old male who shot himself in the leg with a firearm and then was less than truthful with the police and said he got robbed. We had an 18-year-old male who was committing a Cash App scam with an individual, and as he's running away, his pants fall down, he grabs his pants, and he accidentally shoots himself. And, you know, we also had the tragic incident of the 3-year-old who's killed inside of an apartment at 12 at night, left there by the parent who's trying to go to work and make a living, leaves it with a 70-year-old babysitter, and somehow that 3-year-old ends up with the gunshot wound to the head. And then we have an incident in Zone 6 where we had a father and a son who get into an altercation, and the father tells his son he's going to shoot him because his son has a drug addiction problem, and the father follows through on that and shoots that son. Those incidents, the Atlanta Police Department really cannot control. But let's be clear, the ones that we can control, we will come after those people. We will be looking at cameras, we'll be looking at license plate readers, and we will be looking that cell phone video. So we just urge any person that may have been at Piedmont Park or any of these locations where we had shooting, if you see something, if you recorded something, if you know something, come forward and give us that information. As the mayor said, you want to do it anonymously, just sure dial 404-577-8477. And let me be clear on that. We are going to continue to come after these people. Accountability is coming.
You heard the assistant chief there mention the tragic shooting of a 3-year-old who was killed. Our Ray Urena is on top of that story this afternoon. He's going to join us here just in a little bit in the 3:30 p.m. Half hour here on Fox Local and the 3 p.m. streaming hour to dig a little bit deeper into that horrific story. Again, the shooting death of a 3-year-old baby. The assistant chief referencing that in the news conference that we just heard a bit of. A former Georgia cheerleader breaking her silence after her former coach pleaded guilty to grooming and sexual exploitation. 19-year-old Lily Penn says the abuse started when she was just 15 years old. Charles Moore III was sentenced to 12 years in prison this week, but Penn says the emotional toll remains. Here's what she had to say in court about facing her abuser.
16, he was like, no, it's okay, this is normal for coaches and athletes, like, you're old enough. And I was like, it doesn't really feel normal. And then after that happened, he kind of switched and was like, no one can find out about this, you can't tell anyone.
That was Lily Penn, the survivor of sex crimes against her, a trauma that she will have to live with and reconcile for the rest of her life as her accused is convicted and sentenced to prison. Let's shift gears and talk about the situation in Iran. The President of the United States holding a news conference not too long ago. This as Israel ramps up its offensive against Iran, reportedly striking a major petrochemical plant and killing its Revolutionary Guard head of intelligence. At the same time, President Trump is issuing another ultimatum, warning he will escalate U.S. attacks on Iranian infrastructure if a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz isn't reached by tonight. While mediators propose a 45-day ceasefire, Tehran has reportedly rejected the offer. But again, Israel ramping up that offensive against Iran for the first time, reportedly striking a major petrochemical plant, killing the Revolutionary Guard's head of intelligence in that area. All of this happening as President Trump holds a briefing in the briefing room today at the White House. He was with his Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and the CIA Director John Ratcliffe to update us on the rescue of the second airman that was downed by Iranian anti-aircraft missiles. They rescued the first one pretty fast. The second one took a little bit longer, but the president spoke about that today.
It's a great honor to be with you, and happy Easter. We had a great Easter. This is one of our better Easters, I think, in a lot of different ways. I can say militarily, it's been one of the best. So, good afternoon. We have quite a bit to discuss. We'll go into pretty good detail. And we have the people that are most involved. We'll give you exactitude. And we're here today to celebrate the success of one of the largest, most complex, most harrowing combat searches. I guess you would call it a search and rescue mission ever attempted by the military. Generally, when planes are knocked down in war, especially when you're fighting a strong group, an evil group, you can't really do this because you send in 200 men to pick up one, and it's something that's usually not attempted as much as you want to attempt. And bad things happen to that one or two. And in this case, we did two, and it might not have been attempted before, but we did. And we had great talent, but we got a little luck too, I would say. And we were helped by a lot of people, a lot of great people. And it was an honor to be involved with it. It's very historic. This is a a rescue that's very historic. It'll go down in the books. Late Thursday night, an American F-15 fighter jet went down deep inside enemy territory in Iran while participating in Operation Epic Fury, where we're doing unbelievably well, at a level that nobody's ever seen before. The entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night. Both members of the crew ejected from the aircraft and landed alive on Iranian soil. I immediately was asked to make a decision. I ordered the U.S. Armed Forces to do whatever was necessary to bring our brave warriors back home. A risky decision, because we could have ended up with 100 dead as opposed to 1 or 2. It's a hard decision to make. But in the United States military, we leave no American behind. We don't do it. Within hours, our armed forces deployed 21 military aircraft into hostile airspace, many flying at very low altitude, being shot by bullets. You bring rifles into play when you're going that low, but there are also certain advantages. And in broad daylight over Iran for 7 hours, at times facing very, very heavy enemy fire. We have a helicopter that's got a lot of bullets in it. It's amazing. We just realized how good those weapons are. Our machines are. Nobody has the equipment that we have, and nobody has the military that we have. Not even close. We're the most powerful military anywhere in the world by far. The flight crews and warfighters aboard those aircraft took extraordinary risks to rescue their fellow service members. This first wave of search and rescue forces successfully located the pilot of the F-15, and he was extracted from enemy territory by an HH-60 Jolly Green II helicopter. Fabulous machine as our warriors faced gunfire at very close range. It's amazing that when you look at the machinery, what happened, that nobody was even injured. Meanwhile, the second crew member, a weapons system officer, highly respected colonel, had landed a significant distance away from the pilot. When you're going at those speeds, even if you go out 2 or 3 seconds later, it's miles and miles away because you're going fast. He was injured quite badly and stranded in an area teeming with terrorists from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps rough group, as well as besieged militia and local authorities. Many, on top of everything else, they told the communities actually within inside of Iran, the people of Iran, they were given a tremendous incentive to find this pilot. Despite the peril, the officer followed his training and climbed into the treacherous mountain terrain and started climbing toward a higher altitude, something they were trained to do in order to evade capture. They want to always go as far away from the site of the shoot down. You want to go as far away because they all head right to that site. You want to be as far away as you can. And he was injured, and he was an amazing, amazing thing. He scaled cliff faces, bleeding rather profusely, treated his own wounds, and contacted American forces to transmit his location. They have a very sophisticated beeper-type apparatus that is on them at all times. And when they go out on these missions, they make sure they have lots of battery space, and they're in good shape. And this one worked really well, amazingly, saved his life. We immediately mobilized a massive operation to retrieve him from the mountain holdout, and he kept going higher and higher. The mountain kept getting rougher and rougher, and really very, very hard to find. The second rescue mission involved 155 aircraft, including 4 bombers, 64 fighters, 48 refueling tankers, 13 rescue aircraft, and more. We were bringing them all over, and a lot of it was subterfuge. We wanted to have them think he was in a different location because they had a vast military force out there. Thousands of people were looking So we wanted them to look in different areas, so we were scattered all over like we were right on top of them. We had 7 different locations where they thought, and they were very confused. They said, well, wait a minute, they've got groups here, they've got groups there. It's an amazing thing. I was listening to these great people, these great generals. General Raisin Kane was amazing, and Pete Hegseth was amazing. But I listened to the whole thing. It was pretty amazing. So they had all these different sites where everybody
President Trump speaking in the briefing room of the White House today, joined by the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane, in addition to the CIA Director, John Ratcliffe, talking about the dramatic rescue of that fighter pilot whose plane was shot down by Iranian anti-aircraft fire, talking about the nature of that rescue. One pilot was rescued right away. This pilot had to wait a couple of days before U.S. forces were able to track him and extract him from a very mountainous region that he was hiding out in, as the president said, literally treating his own wounds that he suffered during the ejection and the return down to earth in hostile enemy territory there in Iran. All of this playing out while Congress tries to reconcile, funding the Department of Homeland Security, something that's been dragging on for quite some time, which, as you remember, just over a month ago, culminated in TSA workers falling victim to the fight in Congress and not getting paid, resulting in these 3+ hour lines at our nation's airports, some of them stretching all the way out onto the curbside. Well, that was ended when the president signed an executive order that resumed paying the TSA workers. But Congress remains on recess this week, with the Department of Homeland Security still largely lacking funding. Speaker Mike Johnson facing a conservative revolt over a Senate plan, while President Trump has set a June 1st deadline to get a deal to his desk. Meanwhile, the White House is pushing to privatize more airport security checkpoints as the partisan gridlock over ICE funding continues. We have a lot more in store for you on the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. We're going to talk about the Artemis II mission. Now, I believe officially the furthest spacecraft away from Earth with astronauts inside that one has ever gone. Okay, they're getting closer and closer to the dark side of the moon, so to speak, and we're going to track their mission when we come back. Welcome back, everybody. We're kicking off the work week on kind of a cloudy, chilly note. If you're with us here in North Georgia, you know what I'm talking about outside. Not a great day out there. I mean, it's not raining. We did get a little bit of rain that moved through here over the weekend. Not enough to satisfy our drought problem, though. Meteorologist Alex Forbes is here to track what the rest of this work week is going to look like for us.
A lot of cloud cover across metro Atlanta and North Georgia this afternoon as temperatures are a little more seasonable compared to what we saw over the last 2 to 3 weeks, particularly towards the back half of March and into April. Yesterday was actually our first average day in quite a while, and our first day since St. Patrick's Day that we weren't below average, or that we were either at or below average. There you go. So sunset tonight at 8:02. Do look for clouds to be present, right, particularly along and south of I-20 here through the evening hours. Up north of I-20, that's where you're seeing some more breaks in the clouds, and that does include out in Augusta, right? Looking at the cloudy skies out there as we work our way into the evening hours tonight and into tomorrow. Now, tomorrow we'll see a general clearing trend across north and central Georgia, but it's going to take a while to reach the rest of eastern Georgia. So do be on the lookout for that if you're headed out I-20 tomorrow afternoon, and I'm sure to enjoy it with temperatures in the 70s. Here we go into the Wednesday morning hours. A breeze coming in out of the northeast. That's actually going to keep temperatures a bit cooler there for Wednesday. As for this afternoon, looking for a high temperature in Atlanta around 68, 70 in Athens, 70 in Covington, 70 in Milledgeville. Mind you, with sunset at 8-something, this high temperature is happening at about 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon now. Let's talk about this because it's a developing situation that we continue to keep tabs on. The drought monitor. One, look at the state of Georgia and how much is included in at least severe drought. We'll talk more about that here in a second, but let's zoom in on our area real quick. And you're going to see from the upstate of South Carolina down into Elbert County, over into the Athens area, lifting up into Clarksville and Blue Ridge. That's where you're in extreme droughts. If you think about the different levels there, that's level 4 out of 5. And we've got exceptional drought down into South Georgia. As for metro Atlanta, we are in the severe drought territory, and we really need some rain to put an into this. Just how much rain? Well, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches each week for 3 months. And I just don't see that on the horizon, unfortunately, for us here in metro Atlanta and North Georgia. We are more than a foot below average since the beginning of September, putting us in the worst drought we've seen since 2012. And part of the reason for that is the dry air that we've been experiencing and that we're going to continue to experience here through the week ahead. That's going to put the kibosh on any rain chances as well. We were talking about tomorrow in Augusta, 74, your high temperature out there, morning clouds, afternoon sun. Copy and paste that forecast to metro Atlanta, 74 for the afternoon, probably more sun earlier in the day. And then as we find our way towards the back half of the week, we're going to reset that warming trend with the northeasterly breeze on Wednesday before we get back into the 80s for Saturday and Sunday. It's definitely going to be a much better weekend ahead than we saw this past weekend with those rain chances non-existent.
All right, looking forward to it. Alex, thanks so much. Let's talk Artemis now. Artemis 2 mission underway. We're going to show you some pretty cool live pictures here of astronauts and their spacecraft as they make their way to the moon in about 4 hours or so, we're told. The astronauts are going to be on the dark side of the moon. They're already further than any other astronaut has, I believe, gone or something to that effect. They're making history today, okay? And it's a situation where when they get to the other side of the moon, they're going to lose their sunlight, so it's going to be pitch dark. They're going to lose communication with the Earth. They're basically going to be on their own. I understand that they're already within the gravitational pull of the moon. So this is that slingshot effect that we often talk about, where it's going to pull the spacecraft toward the planet. They're going to orbit around, and then it's going to shoot them right back toward the Earth. This is a 10-day or so mission. Spirits are high on board the spacecraft as the astronauts make their way around. It's not the space shuttle, so they have a bit of a more confined situation there, but it's very, very cool nonetheless. The mission making history today as these 4 astronauts travel, as I was saying, further into space than any human has done before. The Orion spacecraft entered lunar space, preparing for this flyby on the dark side of the moon. During the loop, the astronauts are going to lose the communication that we were talking about. NASA says while the ship is performing well, engineers are still troubleshooting an issue with the wastewater vent line before the crew begins the journey home. So some really cool images of Artemis 2 coming back to Earth as these astronauts make their way to the dark side of the moon. In a stunning shakeoff to kick off WNBA free agency, reports say that the Chicago Sky are trading star forward Angel Reese to the Atlanta Dream. The former LSU standout was a force in Chicago, earning an All-Star nod and setting rebounding records during her first 2 seasons. The move comes as the league operates under a brand new collective bargaining agreement, sending one of the game's biggest stars to an Atlanta squad that posted the league's best record last year. So some good news for the Atlanta Dream. The Supreme Court has handed Steve Bannon a major legal win that could lead to the dismissal of his contempt of Congress conviction. The justices threw out an appellate ruling that upheld his conviction for defying a January 6 subpoena. While Bannon has already served his 4-month prison term, the move is a symbolic victory for the longtime Trump ally. It comes as Bannon avoids further jail time in a separate New York fraud case after reaching a plea deal. Coming up here in the 3 p.m. streaming hour, still got a lot more ground to cover here. We're going to check in with our Ray Urena. You heard the Assistant Atlanta Police Chief talk about the death of this 3-year-old boy after a shooting on Washington Street. Our Ray Urena has more on the investigation, the family's reaction, and the circumstances surrounding this horrific shooting when we come back. Welcome back, everybody. You're watching the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. I'm your host, Tom Haines, with you here live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. Appreciate you streaming with us on our Fox Local app on your mobile device, or if you're watching on one of your live channels at home, we welcome you as well, or from one of Fox 5's social media sites, YouTube, Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever you're on, we welcome you as well. We appreciate your comments, too, if you want to weigh in on anything that we're talking about here this afternoon. We have a tragic update out of southwest Atlanta where a 3-year-old boy has died after a shooting on Washington Street, something that Atlanta's police chief spoke about here not too long ago. The medical examiner identifying the toddler as Armani Lyons. Here's Ray Urena with us live with the latest on the investigation, Ray, into this heartbreaking loss.
Yeah, you said it best, Tom, that police are calling this very tragic incident. And we do know now that that toddler was home with a babysitter when this shooting happened. Atlanta police investigators say that it happened at an apartment complex along the 900 block of Washington Street in southwest Atlanta at about 12:30 in the morning on Sunday. Medics rushed that toddler to the hospital where they were pronounced dead. The Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office has identified that child as 3-year-old Armani Lyons. Like you said earlier, police said the toddler was left at the apartment while their parent went to work and somehow ended up with a gunshot wound to the head. A neighbor we talked to offered her condolences, but says the shooting has made her feel unsafe while living there with her own children. During a news conference today, police confirmed that the babysitter was taken in for questioning. Take a listen.
This is an active investigation, and she is a witness in this investigation. She was the one inside the location with the 3-year-old when the 3-year-old was deceased. Allegedly, there were other individuals inside, but we haven't identified any of those other individuals. So right now, she is the sole witness to this incident, so she was brought down to be questioned as a witness at this point, but still a fluid investigation.
A fluid investigation, but as of right now, there is no word yet on any potential suspects or charges or any other new developments in this case. And throughout the day, we have tried multiple times to try and get in touch with the family of this toddler who passed away from this shooting, but we have not been able to. Tom.
Ray, it's just so sad and so unnecessary, but it seems like, at least according to Atlanta police, they're dealing with these kind of issues on so many fronts and on so many occasions. It's getting hard to keep up with. I mean, I feel like especially in the past couple of weeks, as they try to tighten security ahead of this huge high-profile event that's headed our way this summer, you know, there seem to be these extraneous shootings where these families are left devastated after the loss of, in many cases, children, Ray.
Yeah, Tom, and you heard during the news conference today that Atlanta police and the mayor talked about trying to attack the root causes of crime, and we have covered a number of these shootings, like you said, recently in the past couple weeks, where even the police chief, Darren Shearbaum, he came out to one of the scenes that we were reporting at last week, and he mentioned then that they're still dealing with a decrease in crime, especially in violent crime, but Atlanta police say, especially in this news conference, are hammering home that they are trying to attack the root causes of crime to potentially stop these things from happening before they do so, Tom.
Yeah, well, you know, I know they talk about the reduction in crime. We're always happy to hear that, but when you hear about these horrible cases involving children, all of that news sort of gets overlooked when something horrible like this happens. Ray Urena following this horrific shooting involving a 3-year-old. Ray, thanks. Well, speaking of the Atlanta police and that news conference that they held, they did take some questions from reporters, digging a little bit deeper into the tragic shootings across the city over the weekend. The mayor was there, the assistant chief of police, and they fielded some questions about all of this. Listen to part of how that news conference unfolded.
With the FIFA coming up and all these events, do you guys have like a plan to increase the security measures so this doesn't happen in this type of event?
Yeah, absolutely. We prepare for every day to try to make sure that Atlanta is safe for residents, for visitors. Of course, that includes major events like FIFA World Cup. It includes every single day. During this weekend, we had Atlanta United matches. We had events at State Farm, had concerts at Tabernacle, at Center Stage, at Downtown. We had a parade. We also had Underground. We had South Downtown. We had events all over the place that were actually safe and planned with APD's protection and involvement, as well as the Parks Department and so many others. So we plan and work together with everyone. As FIFA comes, we will have added security, particularly in the downtown space and the space around the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and downtown. There's a safe zone, a clean zone, if you will, that you have to be badged to be allowed in, etc. That is all planned out with the FIFA team, the Atlanta Sports Council. But even while FIFA is taking place, there's still an entire city we will be protecting. So APD has a plan that covers every zone as well as the zone downtown around FIFA. That plan has been put in place over the last year, and working with our partners at the GBI, FBI, Georgia State Patrol, and regional partners. We're going to be bringing in additional law enforcement agencies, whether it's Cobb County, Clayton County, Fulton County, and a few others are going to be helping us to add to that. We will have mounted patrol, which are our horses that are able to see over crowds. We have drones. We have a lot of things in place around FIFA World Cup in that in the space around the games.
And I know you guys said this obviously happened outside of the 404-day celebration. Do you know why those 4 individuals that you talked about, why they were there? Was this a team takeover kind of a event? Do you have any indication of why these 4 people were in the park in the first place?
You want to mention what you think?
So again, obviously, until we get these individuals identified, we won't have an idea why they were there. But again, remember, the park was open. So this wasn't an event where people were coming into the park illegally or taking over the park. So once we get those individuals identified, hopefully we'll be able to figure out, obviously, why they were there, who they were there with. But that's really going to come down to people providing information through Crime Stoppers, sharing video. Any bit of information will hopefully get us to that point where we can answer that question.
CBS Atlanta, you have a question?
And just really quick, I just want to address the team takeover. Just let me be clear. There were no team takeovers identified during this weekend. We had dedicated analysts working all weekend, and that was one of their sole responsibilities to identify team takeovers. We knew where we were going to have a lot of people at, and Piedmont Park was one of them. As the mayor said, we had adequately staffed people, and unfortunately, when that incident happened, it wasn't a 911 call. It was an officer strategically placed in that park that heard the gunfire and started that location before a 911 call even came up. Same thing with the shooting on Edgewood. Prior to any 911 calls, the officers in the area heard the gunfire and they responded before we got our first 911 call. So we look at all social medias, we look for team takeovers, and we are in constant communications with DeKalb County, Cobb County, talking about where these teams may go. Are they going to the Battery? Or are you pushing them back down here to Atlanta? So we saw no indication of team takeovers. We did see a lot of juveniles in the park, but those kids were not being rowdy or disruptive until that tragic incident happened.
Richard?
And also, just one other thing on Edgewood, there were 32 officers assigned to Edgewood during that time. So, proper coverage. And the incident occurred on a back alley, unrelated to 404, unrelated to Easter, unrelated to spring break. These are actually adults, and we think it was, well, I'll let APD talk about what we think it is, but it was intrapersonal. It had nothing to do with nightlife. We really applaud the Edgewood corridor this weekend for their nightlife. We worked with them over the past couple of years because an incident happened a couple of years ago, and so with all of the police that were there and all of the nightlife operators, on the street, it went well, and in the bars. Who's next?
Richard.
So I kind of have, since he didn't have one, I got 2 easy ones. Do you have more information about the 4 who were shot? I think it was Sparks. Just basic details about what kind of happened.
Either one of you want to talk about Sparks?
And I've got one for the mayor.
So real quick with Spark Street, where again that just happened last night. We're early in the investigation. We do know that there was some type of fight that broke out. We're being told initially there was a group of females that started a dispute, and then of course we had individuals with firearms that should not have had that firearms, and they began discharging them. And then we did have 1 adult and 3 juveniles sustain gunshot injuries. One of those juveniles is currently at Grady in critical but stable condition at this point.
And what was the event event, essentially?
So there was a birthday party. We knew about this. However, that party was shut down. And afterwards, there was a pop-up after party that appeared over on Spark Street. And we know now that a lot of those individuals arrived on Spark Street.
And Ms. Ware, I have a quick question for you. You've done a lot to try and provide diversions for City of Atlanta youth and teens, but we're hearing these kids are coming in from Norcross, they're coming in from Peachtree Corners. What can you do? Coordinate with other places to try and encapsulate so these other kids who are visiting the city can take advantage.
Yeah, that's a great appropriate question. We are trying to make sure that every young person in Metro Atlanta is safe. And I hope that everyone in Metro Atlanta is trying to make sure that every youth is safe. So 600,000 teens, so 600,000 students are out of school right now. So that is a lot of people to try to come to the City of Atlanta's rec centers or to come to City of Atlanta parks. And so I'm thankful for all of the clergy, all of the do-gooders in the community that have texted me or emailed me, you got to give these kids something to do. And so we've expanded the hours of operation at the Department of Parks and Recreation, at Promise Centers. We're even investing in trying to create what we call third spaces. You know, you have home, school, and where else. So the third spaces will be fun zones and places. We've done teens, have these Teens After Dark programming that's at our Parks and Rec, and they're going well, but it's still just the city of Atlanta. The city's population is about 8% of the metro area. It's 520,000 Atlanta residents, and there's 6.5 million Metro Atlantans. This 8% can't take care of 92% of the folks' kids. So, but they love our amenities. Piedmont Park is paid for by Atlanta taxpayers and the Conservancy, but folks from all over come enjoy it. The Beltline. The Beltline had over 20,000 people walk across our counter this weekend. 20,000 people enjoyed themselves with no incident. Those kids are coming from all over. There's people jogging on the Beltline. They're coming from all over Metro Atlanta and beyond. So how do we make sure
Mayor Andre Dickens and police officials on the wave of violence that was sparked over the weekend, addressing, the crime-fighting measures that the Atlanta Police Force is taking and outlining exactly what happened at those events, or at least what they think happened, that led up to some of those tragic shootings, many involving, or most involving children. But saying that there were so many things going on in the Metro Atlanta area this weekend that went off without a hitch, that these were isolated incidents, that the police force actually responded to before anyone even called 911, that there were officers on the scene that heard the shooting, that were able to sort of get control of these situations before they metastasized and became worse, that it wasn't one of these so-called teen takeovers that we've been talking so much about, where these teens put out a call to action on social media to gather in one place or another, that it just happened to be a group of teens that were in the park and of course resulted in the shooting of that 16-year-old girl. So that from Atlanta officials, including the mayor there. When we come back, it is warming up out there. You wouldn't know that today. It is a little chilly outside, but that means spring. That means getting out into the garden, doing some planting. Our Chris Rosenthal is going to join us with all you need to know as we head into the season when we come back. Welcome back to the 3 p.m. streaming hour. So happy you're with us this afternoon. I'm Tom Haines with you live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. You know, it's the perfect time to get out there, do some planting in the yard. I think the freezing weather is behind us now, and we are in spring officially. Chris Rosenthal is out and about at a garden center. Chris, what do you have to say to those folks who are getting out, doing planting, wanting to put some native plants in the yard that will actually grow?
Yeah, you know, native plants, it's something that have been growing in popularity, something we don't necessarily think about, you know, putting in plants that are from natives from Georgia. And I am at Little Creek Farm Nursery here in Dallas, Georgia, and they specialize in native plants. Most of these plants around me here, you see behind me, are all plants that are not just pretty, but native to Georgia. And there are some real practical reasons why you'd want to do native plants. And I'm joined by Mike here. He's the owner of Little Creek Farm Nursery. And tell me, first of all, why native plants? Why are they so, why is it so important?
Well, native plants they're great for the environment. I mean, they've been here longer than man has, and we need them for pollinators. We need the pollinators for food. So our food supply is determined on the pollination of our bees, our birds, and our butterflies. The native plants are food source for a lot of your beneficial insects. You need a lot of the native plants are medicinal plants. They make medicine out of them. But they've been here so long that they're used to our environment. They're used to this Georgia clay soil, the acidity. They're just used to all this climate. And they thrive in this where other plants won't.
Which, yeah, it means, you know, lower maintenance for you. So, you know, we've got about a minute or so left here, but let's go through some of these plants here. I mean, these are azaleas, huh?
These are your native azaleas. Some people will actually call them honeysuckle bushes because they have a honeysuckle type flower on them. Mm-hmm. They are very fragrant. They grow upright, not like the typical azalea you see in front of houses. These are native, so they grow wild and they grow tall.
Yeah, and you're seeing natives are becoming really popular these days, huh?
Very popular. The state has even changed the state flower from the Confederate rose and changed it to the Sweet Bay magnolia now. This is supposedly the new state flower, which will have a yellow flower on it, a lemon-scented flower that will come on later this summer.
And these are just some of the native plants that you guys have here. I know they're very busy. We've been talking about their business here all afternoon, and native plants are really something that's I think people are being much more cognizant of when they're planting. So and they've got lots of them here at Little Creek Farm here in Dallas, Georgia.
Beautiful, Chris, and such great ideas of things, native plants you can put in the ground this spring. Chris Rosenthal, thanks. And thank you for joining us for the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. I'm Tom Haines. The news continues right here, right now.